Hello, friends. It is 8 o'clock in the evening here in Ireland, which must mean it's 4 o'clock Eastern Time, US, 1 o'clock Pacific, and already tomorrow morning down there in Australia and New Zealand. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's wonderful to have each and every one of you here. And if you don't mind, just tell us where you're from in the chat while I'm filling in a few things here and just welcoming people. I have to tell you, to start with tonight, nothing here has been evaluated by the good old FDA or Facebook fact checkers, thankfully, and nothing in this webinar is intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. Let's see where people are from. Jane is saying she wishes she was in Ireland. Jane, I'm not sure with our weather right now that you wish you were here. But yes, it's a beautiful place for sure. We have people in from Minnesota, from Florida, from Colorado, New York City, all over the place as always. Thank you so much for being here. Listen, if you do have questions, save your questions until the end, if you would be so kind, because we have literally, I think, 4,000 people registered for tonight. So if you put your questions in now, they're going to disappear off the end of the Q&A before we get the chance to ask them later. So please save your questions until the end if you would be so kind. If you've got a technical problem, click the good old reconnect button. That is the one that will solve your problems and should make everything work for you nice and easy. Be nice to each other in the chat if you would. In a world where you can be anything, as it says there, just be kind to each other. So let's stay away from politics and crazy conspiracy theories and all that stuff, and stick to what we're here to talk about. Let me just get straight in there with a quick competition. I always like to do this as people are entering the room. So let's give away a copy of this book on Kindle. This is EMF'd, great title, by Dr. Joe Mercola. And Joe is going to feature a few times tonight. But we like to give this away at the start, just while people are entering the room. And all I want to know is, for you to win a copy of this on Kindle, just be the first person in the chat to tell me which vitamin do you get from sunlight. That's all I want to know. Which vitamin do you get from sunlight? Now, it's going to fly down there really, really quickly. So here we go. There's a 15-second delay between me saying something and seeing your reply usually. So let's see who is the first one in with the answer. And Corey is the answer, K-O-R-I. The answer, of course, is vitamin D. So congratulations to you, Corey. This will get a copy of EMF'd on Kindle winging its way to you as soon as possible. Now, you're probably wondering if this is worth your time tonight. And let me show you something real quick before you decide to just turn the whole thing off. Years that we've been doing these webinars, dozens and dozens of comments from people, emails from people saying how much they've enjoyed it and how much they've discovered from this webinar. So you can be sure tonight you're in the right place, absolutely 100%. And you're going to learn something tonight. This is the most watched health web class series on the planet, which blows my mind, I have to tell you. But it is coming to you from the beautiful country of Ireland, as we said earlier. And this is my little field in the corner of Ireland. I have horses outside the window here. It's a really rainy couple of days for sure. There's rain lying everywhere all over the place in Ireland right now. But hey, I'm just delighted and thankful that I get to do this. In case you haven't got a clue who I am, that's perfectly fine. My name is Trevor King. I'm a God-loving grandfather. I'm an expert in Haiti, in India, in Romania, NGO projects, but very much like yourselves, folks. I just want the very best for myself and my kids and my family. That's really what it's all about. I just want the best future I can possibly find for them. Now, the lady in the center, that's my 4 children. The girl in the center is Katie, my oldest daughter. And Katie brought these 2 little wonders into the world, my 2 grandsons, Ollie and Charlie. And as you will know, the cogs change a little bit up here when you're a grandparent. Even when you become a parent, they change a little bit. But for sure, when you become a grandparent, you start to think a little bit differently about the future. Now, I was an ex-concert promoter. I worked with wonderful people like Vince Gill, Amy Grant, Art Garfunkel, Bill Gaither, Michael W. Smith, on and on and on. Did about 400 concerts worldwide, in India, in Australia, in Europe, all over the place. But very sadly, it all came to an end for me because of depression. I had major depression for years, and I really had to stop touring. And I had to find something to actually help me with the depression because the antidepressants were doing me no good whatsoever. They just weren't helping. So I had to find an answer. And I actually started traveling to meet different natural doctors and experts around the world. And one of the first people I was lucky enough to meet is the guy in the top left-hand picture, Andrew Saul. And Andrew was a vitamin expert, is the world's foremost vitamin expert, in my opinion. And he introduced me to a lot of things, which helped me a lot. And the guy, Michael Beattie, top center, was a director at the BBC, and he suggested we make a film of actually getting better from the depression using vitamins. So we made a film called That Vitamin Movie, went on to make another film called Faith, Hope and Cancer, and finally a 10-part series called Live Longer, Feel Better. But I emphasize to you again, the most important thing about me is I'm a normal guy like yourselves. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a credentialed expert. I am just someone who really wants the best health. And yes, I've done years of research on this for sure. Now, since we brought those films out, we have had over 4.7 million views of the films and the events that we ran alongside them. So something we do resonates with people for sure. Now, who is this actually for today? Well, if you don't realize that your health is almost certainly suffering from EMF exposure, you're going to discover a lot of stuff today. If you don't know where to start in dealing with the problem, same thing, you're going to learn. And if you want an accurate summary of what is going on with this whole issue, saving you a lot of hours searching online, you're in the right place tonight. Now, who is it not for? Well, if you don't seriously value your health, you're probably wasting your time, but would you be here anyway? Michael, you're saying it's a rerun. I'm not sure what you mean by a rerun. I'm sitting here live and well. Yes, I've done this webinar before, but is it a rerun? No, it's not a rerun. So you're wrong there, Michael. If you believe everything the government and mainstream media tell you 100%, same thing, you're in the wrong place tonight. And if you really believe that a tiny little sticker or crystal can solve this massive problem, you're also in the wrong place. So I hope that helps. On tonight's webinar, what we're going to look at is what EMFs actually are, where you find them in your daily life, and how they affect you, the toll that EMFs have been proven to take on human health, and why you've been largely kept in the dark about this threat, and practical strategies to protect yourself and your loved ones from EMFs at home, at work, and out in the world. That is what we're going to look at tonight. Towards the end, I'm going to tell you about some new EMF protection devices that are completely changing the way people deal with EMFs. And I think you'll be excited to see that. And just be aware that I am going to explain about those later, including a no-risk trial you can take if you're interested. If you're not interested, no problem whatsoever. I just want you to go away from tonight with different options to deal with the problem. And if me sharing that later annoys you for some reason, hey, you're one click away from turning the webinar off. So no problem whatsoever. Don't worry about it. I want to thank a couple of people who have been good enough to recommend friends tonight. Health Means, Health Freedom, Stefan from Zonia, Revealed Films, and Darren O'Lean all have sent people to the webinar tonight. Guys, I thank you for that. And I promise you, your people will be treated well as always. Now, this is Zac Efron, who was on a series called Down to Earth on Netflix. And a great series. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go and have a look at it. Zac had a co-host for that series called Darren O'Lean. That's Darren on the left-hand side. Now, Darren is a very, very interesting guy. And he has been featuring on podcasts recently with a lot of the famous podcast people like Dr. Gundry, like Megyn Kelly, like what's that guy's name? Oh, it's gone out of my head. Amen, Dr. Daniel Amen. And he brought a book out recently called Fatal Conveniences, which I've actually read. It's a really good book. But I'm going to play you a little thing at the very end tonight by Darren, where he talks about EMFs, because it's very, very interesting, and you will find it interesting. So stay to the end. We're also going to give you a free membership to my Natural Health Academy, which I'll explain at the end. And we're going to give away a $500 gift card as well. All that coming later on. But listen, I'm going to stop faffing about and get straight in there, get stuck into this, okay? I have been on a serious health journey since 2014. That's really when this health journey started for me. And as I said earlier, it came because of depression. I had to find out some way to actually figure out how to deal with this. My health focus that whole time has been on what's been going into my body, okay? And largely because I was dealing with Andrew Saul, who was a vitamin expert, and Andrew was teaching me how to take better nutrients, how to get stuff into my body that was going to help me. But I never really thought very much about what I needed to avoid until I was at a conference with this gentleman, David Wolf. Now, you might know David from his adverts for NutriBullet, but David is a real nutritional expert. And he says that detoxification is actually more important for longer life than nutrition is. And he explained it like this. If you have a beautiful supercar like this, doesn't matter how good the fuel you put in there is, if everything is clogged, if your fuel filters are clogged, if your air filter's clogged, if it needs cleaned out, if it needs detoxified, the car is not going to run right. And your body is exactly the same. It's an amazing machine, but you must look after it properly if it's going to last, because otherwise it simply won't. Now, your body is also electrical, and that has obvious implications when it comes to EMF, and EMF is Dr. Joe McCullough. And Joe is a figure who is slightly controversial. Google actually closed him down because they didn't like him talking about natural remedies. And he's the author of that book, EMF, that I was telling you about. Now, he is the guy who got me interested in this in the first place. And he said when he was in this book, he said, it's imperative that you're making choices now to do with EMFs, because if you wait for the telecommunications industry, you'll be waiting far too long. That's what he said. And I always emphasize on all the webinars I do, you are responsible for your health. You must take action. You are the only one that can solve your problems as far as health is concerned. So Joe, when he brought this book out, he had a little trailer for it, which was only a couple of minutes long. And that's the thing that really got me interested in this subject in the first place. So I'm going to click a couple of buttons, get myself off screen, and I'm going to run that video by Dr. McCullough for you now. So here we go. This is the trailer, 2 minutes long, for Joe's book, EMF.
You can't see it, taste it, or feel it, but it's there, surrounding you, whether you're in your home, at work, or school. And it's putting your health in danger. You may not notice it, but you're being bombarded every day by invisible frequencies that can damage your physical and mental well-being. EMFs can include healthy frequencies like sunlight, but over the last century, we have had a literal explosion in our exposure to unnatural frequencies that have increased by over 1 billion fold. That's a lot. You can see every time that you use your cell phone, Wi-Fi, or computer connected to the internet, you're actually being exposed to these dangerous frequencies. Yet, thanks to stealth tactics of the wireless industry and captured federal regulatory agencies that are not protecting you anymore, we've been kept in the dark about these dangers. In 2011, the World Health Organization classified cell phones as a Class 2B possible carcinogen. But the $23 million NTP study published in 2018, funded by the National Institutes of Health, showed that it is indeed a Class 1 carcinogen, meaning it causes cancer in humans. You probably don't realize it, but EMFs damage your health very similar to the way X-rays do, that no expert will disagree with in their ability to cause cancer. Cell phone and wireless radiation exposures radically increase oxidative stress and inflammation in your body, which increases your risk of virtually every chronic disease. Cancer, of course, heart disease, cardiac arrhythmias, infertility, diabetes, arthritis, neurodegenerative diseases, cataracts, and dozens of other diseases that are just too numerous to list.
So that was the video that started me on this whole journey, that really got my interest in the EMF thing and scared me somewhat, to be honest, about how real is this? How bad is this? Is this something I need to look into? And I spent a long time looking into it since, and I can tell you. Now, I was so ignorant of EMFs myself that I almost bought this place. And this is a house in Florida. It's 33837 is a zip code. And I almost bought this like 10 years ago, right beside an electrical substation. I didn't have a clue how bad that would be, how crazy an idea that would be. Because if you look at electrical substations and people living close, the cancer incidence is off the charts compared to people who don't have that problem. So it's just an example of how little I knew about the problem at that stage. Now, since then, I've learned that EMFs are a huge problem, and they affect almost everyone. You are affected by it, whether you know it or not. Now, an early choice for me was this. I had a son, early 20s, very often depressed, just didn't want to, just life was blah, and always felt bad, felt anxious, felt down. And the router that we were using was in his bedroom. It was like 6 feet from his head. And you see, when we took that thing out of there, the elephant in the room, if you like, when we removed that, different child, absolutely different child. He slept much better, just much more peaceful, much more positive, made a huge difference. So again, I'm just using that as an example. Simple things that we do can have a massive impact on our health as far as EMFs are concerned. Well, what are EMFs? What actually are they? They are electromagnetic fields, many different kinds, many different frequencies, but to sum it all up, they are electromagnetic fields. That's what EMFs are. And it's the man-made ones that are the problem. There are natural EMFs out in nature that are great for us, but it's the man-made ones that are the issue. Now, if you turn your cell phone on, you will know this. If you turn it on in a shopping mall, for example, you will see so many networks that you can connect to, sometimes 50, 60, 70 Wi-Fi signals. Now, if your phone's picking those up, so's your brain, so's your body, so's everything. You're getting all those Wi-Fi signals. But that's not all you're getting, because, yes, you see the available Wi-Fi networks. What you don't see are the unavoidable devices that are around you. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, your computer, the pylon outside your window on your street, your microwave, your fridge freezer, all these things are creating EMFs, and all of them are things we need to look at. Now, are they really dangerous? This is a debate that goes on. Well, you're going to see in this webinar if they're really dangerous, and I think you'll have your eyes open. And this picture here and this one on the next page, these are just two sample images from the hundreds and thousands of articles that are online about the serious risks of EMF. Now, if you ask your government if they're dangerous, they're going to say, no, it's fine, perfectly safe. Why do you think that is? Well, money might have something to do with it, as usual, and you're going to see that money does have something to do with it as we go on in the webinar. But back in 2011, how long ago is that now? Over a dozen years. The WHO, the World Health Organization, they classified microwave radiation as a class 2 carcinogen over 12 years ago. That puts it in the same category as lead and smoking, two things that we know are bad for us, incredibly bad for us. Wi-Fi is in the same category, even according to the World Health Organization. Now, you probably haven't heard much about EMFs and their problems. Maybe you wonder why that is. Well, let me explain very quickly. And to do that, let me take you back to the 1950s to explain this whole smokescreen about EMFs. Because if you go back to the 50s, you were being told Chesterfield cigarettes were great for you. They were absolutely everywhere. They were the choice of young America, they said. What a great slogan. They were being advertised by people like Ben Hogan, famous golfer, Ed Sullivan. All these people were saying Chesterfields were good for you. Perry Como, this ad started to twist the evidence, because this ad, if you look closely, talks about the health benefits of smoking. Quite mind-blowing when you think of it now. And then this ad was in your face about the health benefits of Chesterfields. I've zoomed in there. And it says, a medical specialist making regular examinations of a group of people from various walks of life. 45% have smoked Chesterfields. After 8 months, the medical specialist reports no adverse effects. Imagine. It's crazy. Who paid the medical expert? Well, you know as well as I do. But even back then, they were manipulating data to make things look completely different. Now, let's go back to Dr. Mercola for the last time tonight. I want to run you a little 3-minute segment by Dr. Mercola about how EMFs are like cigarettes and how they're being treated the same way, and how the industry out there is using the same tricks, the same tactics to make us think that EMFs are fine as they did with smoking. Let me run this for you.
Most people in responsible positions know that it causes a problem, and certainly the wireless industry does. No question about it. In many ways, it's just like the tobacco industry. They knew that their product caused cancer and death and disability, and knew it was addictive, yet they claimed up until like the late 1990s, testifying before Congress that it didn't, that it wasn't addictive, that it didn't cause cancer. But then they finally were called out, and the truth was no. It's no surprise that you don't know about this, because you've been cleverly manipulated by a very sophisticated wireless industry strategy that far exceeds the cleverness of the tobacco industry. That is, and there's a lot of reasons why people, most of you watching this, may not realize or understand that, and I'll talk about that next. But the reason is like cigarettes, they don't kill you right away. That's the primary reason. It doesn't kill you in a day or a week or a month even. It takes years and many times decades for the cumulative effects to cause enough biological damage where you're suffering consequences and ultimately die from those effects. My mother happened to die from that. She was a longtime smoker. Started when she was a young girl and wound up dying from COPD just a few years ago as a result of that. And like many tens of millions of others. And we didn't know. I mean, she didn't know. I mean, it wasn't aware. And doctors, of course, are regularly acknowledged in the 20s and 30s for actually advertising and promoting smoking. So similarly, in the 21st century, there's this ignorance, this lack of awareness of the dangers of smoking. But unlike cigarettes, which are obvious, they're offensive odors to many. You can see the smoke, and it's just somewhat intuitive that inhaling hot gases in your lung is not necessarily the wisest strategy for staying healthy. EMFs are invisible. You can't see them, you can't hear them, you can't feel them. So, there's this reluctance to believe or accept that it causes damage, especially when they provide such enormous convenience.
Dr. McCullough pulls no punches. Cigarettes, EMFs, the new cigarettes, same thing, same approach. They're being treated the same way. And right now, folks, as you sit there in your home, whether you're watching on a phone or a tablet or a laptop or whatever, you are surrounded by a smog of EMFs. That's what you live in. Unless you're lucky enough to live up a mountain or live on a beach and you've no Wi-Fi and you've no electric, you are surrounded by EMFs, and we have to do something about them. You can't see them, you can't smell them, you can't taste them, as Dr. McCullough said. Unlike cigarette smoke, where you did have the warning, you don't even have those warnings now. Now, as we go through the webinar tonight, I'm going to use that little symbol. It's going to appear on different slides, and it's just to click in your brain again. EMFs are like cigarettes. There's a big comparison. So let's have a look how different countries in the world treat EMFs, because you'll be surprised by this. There's a very, very different attitude. Let's start with China. Not everyone's favorite country, I know, but a good place to start. Even in China, they insist that pregnant women wear special shielded clothing to shield the fetus. They call them electromagnetic radiation protective belly bands. Quite a mouthful. But that's what they insist ladies wear, because as you're going to see later, huge risk to the fetus from EMFs. In Israel, they have to have this warning on every cell phone. Heavy use of this device can increase the risk of cancer, especially amongst children. They don't pull any punches about it. In France, back in 2014, they banned Wi-Fi in nursery schools. They just said no more. It's not allowed to go in there. It's too dangerous because kids' heads are too soft. The skulls are too thin. It's too dangerous to have Wi-Fi in nursery schools. In India, back in 2012, they brought in some of the toughest EMF and radiation standards on the planet. Now, you might think of India as being a very poor and backward country. Well, certainly there is a lot of poverty there, but they also have huge mega cities, like in Bangalore, Electric City, where they have thousands and tens of thousands of tech workers. And they brought in some of the toughest radiation standards on the globe back in 2012. Here in the UK, Dr. Barry Trower, he is a former MI5 scientist, microwave weapons expert, and he said this, and this was one of the scariest things that I have uncovered in all my research into EMFs. He said, EMF damages your DNA in ways that can never be rectified. Think through generations to come. And what he means by that is your DNA is altered by the EMFs, and so is your daughter's, because it's passed from mother to daughter, to granddaughter, to great-granddaughter. He says it can never be rectified. That's what EMFs can do to your DNA. Now, he was a microwave warfare weaponry expert. He knows what he's talking about. And finally, as far as countries are concerned, in Australia, Telstra is Australia's largest mobile network. And they regularly send texts to everyone's mobile, which warns about the electromagnetic energy and warns you not to put the phone too close to your head and not to talk for too long, etc. They actually send those texts to their customers. Now, this is a little chart that shows the maximum legally allowable power in cell towers across the globe. And this is crazy. USA is measured in at 6,000. Compare that to Canada, about 2,800. Compare that to Belgium at 100. 60 times less is legally allowed in Belgium than is allowed in the US of radiation levels. And maybe that's one reason why you see news articles like this in Newsmax. Dr. Blaylock saying, research shows that EMF levels more than 100 times lower than the legal limit. So let me say that again. This is 1% of what's legally allowed. He said those EMF levels are damaging biological systems and causing brain tumors, eye tumors, testicular cancer, leukemia, and breast cancer. 1% of the legally allowable limit. Crazy, isn't it? So after that thing about Australia and cell phones, let's start looking at cell phones. Let's look at cell phones to start with. One of the biggest and most recognized EMF culprits, without a doubt. Well, Chicago Tribune, back in 2019, they decided to do a study on cell phones. And they decided to measure the power of the cell phone. And what they were measuring exactly was the specific absorption rate. Now, I'm not going to go into what that is. It doesn't really matter right at this moment. All you got to know is that's what they were measuring. And the maximum allowed in the US of the specific absorption rate is 1.6 watts per kilo. Not surprising, I'm sure, but 9 out of the 10 cell phones exceeded the legal limit. The iPhone 7 came in at 7.15. Remember, 1.6 was the limit. 400% over the legal limit. The Galaxy S8, 500% over the legal limit. So our cell phones are putting out way more power than they're actually legally allowed to. And yet Dr. Blaylock's telling us that 1% of the legal limit is causing cancer, etc., etc. It's crazy, folks. Now, the scary thing about the cell phone standards is they haven't been updated since 1996. It's laughable. When Princess Di was getting separated from Prince Charles, 1996, that's when today's cell phone standards were put out there. And you know what they were based on? They were based on cell phones from the 1980s, when Dynasty was on TV, and the A-Team were around, if you could find them. 1980s cell phones looked like that. And those are the cell phones that our standards today are based on. It's absolutely crazy. Now, this is an image of what a cell phone actually does to your brain. And the image on the left is a gentleman who hasn't used a cell phone. Blue and green are pretty neutral, cool colors. When that gentleman has used a cell phone for 15 minutes, look at the image on the right-hand side. And you will see that the yellow and red indicate thermal heating, indicate a major problem, basically, that's going to last. Now, one phone call might not cause a lot of damage. What about 2 phone calls, 5 phone calls? What about someone who works on a cell phone their whole life? What about someone who's on Facebook every time they sit on the toilet? That's the problem we have. Now, you might not know it, but your phone, well, it's smart. It's a smartphone. And it tries to communicate with the cell tower 900 times a minute. That's 15 times every second. And it's the cell tower is saying to your phone, where are you? The phone's saying, I'm here. Where are you? I'm here. Where are you? 900 times a minute. And when you answer a call, because your phone is smart, it goes to maximum power because it doesn't want to drop that call. So that's the worst time to put a phone to your head, just as you're answering the call. Now, even the cell phone manufacturers tell you, if you look in the little book that comes with your cell phone, every single one, in the dangers and warnings section, it will say, do not place this within an inch of your head. They know it causes damage. And that is probably their way of covering their backsides when all the lawsuits are going to come down the line later on in years come. But they tell you that themselves. Don't put it near your head. Now, I have a cell phone sitting beside me here, not turned on. We all put it right to our heads, don't we? All the time. Unless you know better, and unless you're actually learning how to deal with these things. iPhone, a couple of years ago, heart monitor scare. They put out a warning to people. This iPhone could interfere with your heart monitor because of the EMFs. Now, if you're trying to find out where experts stand on this, because I've sort of hinted and indicated, there's two groups of people. There's people who are honest about this, and there's people who are dishonest. There's people who want the best for our children. There's people who want to make money. Where do experts stand on it? I read a wonderful thing yesterday which said most experts stand on this is dependent on where their seat is and who paid for their seat. And that's so true. That's so true. Because studies show no increase in brain tumors. Isn't that strange? And you might think that's weird. How can studies show no increase in brain tumors when I've told you how bad it is? It's puzzling. Well, it's not really. It's because the studies are paid for by the telecommunications industry, and they know the answers they want. One of the studies, one of the main ones, who studied cell phone users, they studied people who made one phone call per week for 6 months, and then they said, see, no brain cancer. Are you kidding? Is that how seriously we take our children's future? That's how studies are done. Now, here's a thought for you. The atomic bombs at the end of World War II, 1945, can you imagine the damage? They killed hundreds of thousands. They injured hundreds of thousands more. But do you know there were no increase in brain tumors found in survivors until 40 years later? And then it went nuts. It was chaos. That's how long it took for the brain tumors and the brain cancer to appear. So how will it be here in another decade or two with unlimited talk and text, with social media taking up every waking moment? How will it be in another decade or two? Are we going to see what they saw? Now, if you think this is scare tactics, and someone accused me of scare tactics last year, and I found it quite amusing, but I understood. If you think this is scare tactics, let me explain it to you this way. If I'd been able to do a webinar back in the 50s on smoking, and I had pointed out, hey, smoking and lung cancer, you got to be careful, would people have listened? When I mentioned lung cancer, would they say, hey, it's just scare tactics? Now we know, looking back, it wasn't just scare tactics. They'd have said, hey, Chesterfield's are good for you. But now that we're 40 years forward, as with Hiroshima, we know better. It wasn't scare tactics. This isn't scare tactics. Unlike cigarette smokes, you can't see EMFs. You can't smell EMFs. You can't taste EMFs. Now let's look at some simple ways to control your phone before we leave the whole mobile phone section. Number one, put it in airplane mode. At night, especially, beside your bed. Don't have it sitting there all night, frying your brain from 6 feet away. Put it in airplane mode. Now, I know sometimes maybe I've got, I don't actually have a teenage son anymore. He's in his early 20s now, but he may as well be in his teens. And when he's out, do I worry about him? Yes. Do I want my phone on in case he needs me? Yes. So I put it at the very far end of the bedroom, well away from me, so I can hear it, but he can still call me. So just use common sense. If you can put it in airplane mode, absolutely the best thing to do. If you need some sort of security for a loved one, put it as far away as possible so you can still hear it. Just be sensible about it. Send a text rather than a call. Why is that? Because the text is much quicker, much shorter. The phone doesn't have to be right up to your ear. Use an EMF-friendly headset. You can go, if you buy from Amazon, go to Amazon, search for that. Go search for it wherever. You probably won't get one on a storefront, in a little town somewhere. But getting them online is not a major problem. And number 4, I've put protect your family jewels. Guys, this is sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it's also sort of absolutely not tongue-in-cheek. I watched a lecture today by the amazing Dr. Deborah Davis, and I recommend anyone to watch her on YouTube. And this is an image from her lecture, which showed a cell phone in a guy's pocket and the way that irradiates through your reproductive area. It's really scary what that does. Now, the sperm clinics in India, if you go to India and you have an issue in this area at all, they will tell guys, don't turn your phone on. Do not carry it in your pocket. They actually tell that to every young guy who goes into the Indian clinics with any issues in that area whatsoever. Now, it's been shown in studies This image shows a study that the Cleveland Clinic did. And if the cell phone is, they basically measured it being close to that area for 4 hours a day, gave an 85% decrease in sperm vitality. Now, if you're trying to get your wife pregnant, if you're trying to have a child, and you have an 85% decrease in sperm vitality, you have a problem. But not only do you have a problem in that way, just think about the damage it's doing to you in general, if that's what it's doing to your sperm count. Now, ladies, you don't get off for free, because very often you carry the cell phone in your bra, and that is not an option, believe me. Breast cancer, the phone is drawing 900 times a minute. Are you there? Yes, I'm here. Are you there? Yes, I'm here. In that area? Seriously? You want that? Of course you don't. And just while we're at it, research wearing wired bras, ladies, because the wire acts as an aerial, and that draws again everything to that area, and you do not want to do that. Now, let's talk about children. Children and cell phones. This one really riles me a bit, I have to say. This is an image of a phone call in an adult's head, and a normal adult skull is 2 millimeters thick. And this is an image of an adult after a 6-minute phone call. And it shows the yellow, which is some sort of heat, and it shows the red, which is extreme heat. Then in the middle, you have a 10-year-old who has a 1 millimeter thick skull, only half as thick. And you can see the same phone call gave a lot more yellow and a lot more red. Look at the 5-year-old skull, which is half a millimeter thick. The yellow heat is almost throughout the skull, and the red is like 50% of the skull. Now, this study was done by a Professor Gandhi, very, very famous in the EMF world. And it was funded by Motorola and the Department of Defense. When he published his results, funding disappeared. That was him done with funding, because he published these results which showed how bad a mobile phone was on a kid's head. Someone said to me yesterday, and I thought it was a really good analogy, cell phone radiation for kids is like sun exposure for kids. They can take way less of it than adults can. You got to be way more careful, and you got to think about it way more. Good way to put it. Now, children grow fast. Their cells are dividing and multiplying rapidly all the time. And EMFs have been shown to damage DNA. Well, in turn, that's going to lead to gene mutations and cancer. It just is. So you have to think about this with children. Childhood leukemia is linked to EMFs. There's study after study after study which show that. And this business standard slide that's in front of you right now, 400% increase in the risk of brain cancer among children using smartphones. Folks, think about that and take that seriously. Your child, if it uses a smartphone regularly, has a 400% increase chance of having a brain tumor. Come on. It's crazy. Now, the average age in the US to have a cell phone now is 10. The average age in the UK, I hate to say, is 8. We give them these things to kids at age 8 with a 400% increased chance of brain tumors. It's nuts. Childhood leukemia linked to EMFs. Someone said to me, I was doing a webinar a few weeks ago, and someone said this, and I thought it was, at first I didn't know if I agreed with it or not, but what they said was, giving your child a cell phone is just like giving them a cigarette. It's doing the same thing. It's damaging them. You got to decide that yourself. You got to decide if it's a good thing to do or not. And I know giving a cell phone to a kid calms them down, it keeps them busy and blah, blah, blah. Put it in airplane mode. Download the movie before you give it to them. There's ways around this. You got to think about it. Now, I could talk about the next thing for 20 minutes, but I'm going to do it for 20 seconds. Pregnancy. Pregnancy and EMFs is a major, major issue. So many studies showing that the fetus can be damaged if you have too much EMFs in that area. A review of scientific findings recently found EMFs are associated with shorter pregnancy, increased fetal heart rate variability and temperature, and babies born with smaller head and chest circumferences. You got to think about it, ladies, if you're pregnant. It's a serious issue. It's something you got to take seriously. Now, cell phones. Having looked at all that, anyone that's honest can see this huge danger with cell phones. The problem is, folks, we are in the middle of a massive experiment with your children, your grandchildren, and my grandchildren. There's no control group. Normally, when you're experimenting in health, you have someone takes the drug, someone else is a placebo. They're not exposed to the drug. You see the difference. There's no control group here. Everyone's exposed. Everyone's exposed. And we have to form the control group if we want to actually keep our kids safe from this stuff. It's so bad that Lloyd's of London will insure anything, almost anything worldwide. They insure Bruce Springsteen's voice. They even insured Tom Jones's chest hair, believe it or not. They will insure anything, but they won't touch damage caused by wireless devices. They refuse. They will not insure it because they know somewhere down the line it's coming. So let's move on from cell phones. Let's look at smart meters. Now, you mightn't have a clue about smart meters. Smart meter is what they're putting into your home now, the utility companies, to measure your electric and your gas. That's what a smart meter is. And like your cell phone, this is pinging the tower all the time, constantly. And there's a website called takebackyourpower.net, which I highly recommend. Takebackyourpower.net. They released a film in 2017 about smart meters. I remember watching it about 2 years after that. I was amazed, actually. Amazed. I don't have a smart meter in my home. I refuse to allow one to be put in my home. But not only is the film there for you to watch it anytime you want, but there's also instructions there on how, if you're US-based, you can refuse a smart meter legally and how to go about all that. So takebackyourpower.net. If you're in the UK, same thing. If you go to stopsmartmeters.org.uk, stopsmartmeters.org.uk, you can get information in the UK on how to refuse a smart meter. Now, in North Carolina, Duke Energy made it possible, and so it's worth investigating in whatever state you live in the US. In North Carolina, if you got a doctor's note to say you had electrical sensitivity, you could refuse a smart meter. You could just go to the energy company and say, nope, don't want it. There's a letter from my doctor, not having it. If you do have a smart meter, and until you get it all sorted out, you can get smart meter shields, about 50 or 60 bucks. Put that over your smart meter. That will stop a lot of the radiation, but just from your smart meter, because you still got everything else that you have to deal with. Now, up to now, we've looked at the home. Let's look at the office very, very quickly. Offices, sadly, are totally full of EMFs, as you can imagine. If you take your home where you have one computer and one mobile phone and one screen and one printer, and then you go to your office and you've maybe 40 of those with the people around you, you can imagine the EMFs that are in there. So all I'm saying is, think about the EMFs at your workplace. If there's anything you can do to move yourself away from them, to work from home, but EMFs in the workplace are a major issue. Now, everything we've looked at so far is what's called 4G. That simply stands for fourth generation, okay? And to summarize the webinar so far, all I could say is this. Almost any independent person accepts we have a major problem with man-made EMFs. By independent, I mean they're not tied to a government agency and they're not tied to the telecommunications industry. You take almost anyone else there who honestly looks at the information available, and they will admit that we have a problem. But how widespread is the problem? How many people actually suffer from this? Well, this is Dr. Magda Havas, very, very well credentialed. Trent University, University of Toronto, Cornell University. She acts as an expert witness in high-profile court cases for things like acid rain, metal pollution, etc. And her current research is dealing with biological effects of EMF frequencies, which makes her one of the best credentialed people out there right now. Now, she said that EMFs, there's adverse health effects for every single one of us. Unless you're living, as I said earlier, in the mountains, on a beach, totally cut off, totally disconnected, you're having effects on your health for sure. But 35% of us, that's over 1 in 3, are having moderate or serious symptoms. Moderate or serious, 1 in 3 of us. And 3% of us is so severe, it's almost killing us. But if you are a person who, this is the iceberg in front of you now, If the top of the iceberg, you know that you don't feel great, but you don't know why. You don't know what's underneath. But you're depressed, actually. You're drained. You're tired. You're edgy. You don't have a clue why. Well, I'm going to show you a video in a moment or two with probably the most preeminent EMF expert on the planet, Dr. Martin Paul. And he talks about people who can't sleep, who are tired all the time, who are depressed, who've got headaches, who can't concentrate, who are anxious. That sums up an EMF person, an EMF suffering person, better than anything else can. Reported health effects from EMS: impaired immune system, reduced melatonin, brain tumors, eye problems, memory loss, eye damage, headaches. It's all out there. It's all to do with EMFs. And some of the results reported: fibromyalgia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, depression, arthritis, diabetes. And everything we've talked about so far is just fourth generation, 4G. 5G is way more frightening. It's way more powerful. So let's talk about 5G. Let's have a look at this. Now, this is a fun one to start with. Mobile phones from 1G in the 80s up to 5G right now. A mobile phone in the 1980s, a 1G, would have taken 4 months and 27 days to download a Star Wars movie. 4 months and 27 days. You will have to enjoy the movie after that. A 5G phone takes 1.5 seconds to do the same thing. Remember, our studies are based back there. But it takes 1.5 seconds now to do what took 4 months and 27 days. It's mind-blowing. This is a lady called Cheryl Atkinson. She used to work for CBS, and she told CNN in an interview after she left CBS, she resigned, and she said they kept caving in to corporate interests and political bias. They wouldn't let her make the documentary she wanted to make. So she left, and she started her own production company called Full Measure. And I'm going to run you this little clip from Cheryl's program, Full Measure, about 5G. This explains 5G to you better than I ever can. So let me hit a couple of buttons, get myself off screen, and run this for you now.
Maybe you've heard about exciting new 5G technology that promises to make our connections to the internet and all of the things connected to the internet faster and better than ever. Like other cell phone technology, 5G emits radiation. 2 federal agencies recently said the available scientific evidence does not support the idea that 5G emits enough radiation to hurt people. But some scientists disagree. At first, the concern sounded far-fetched. We were surprised by what we learned. Today's cover story is 5G Whiz. Chances are you haven't met many people like Professor Martin Paul. Is it true that you do not carry a cell phone?
Yes, I don't carry a cell phone.
How do you possibly communicate in today's world without your cell phone?
I use a wired mouse. I use a wired connection from my computer to my printer. And so everything's wired. And I even have a shield over the screen so that I get less EMS from the screen. So there are ways of protecting yourself.
EMF, electric and magnetic fields, are invisible areas of energy or radiation produced by items like electric appliances, computer screens, and cell phone technology. Paul is so worried about the potential for health risks from EMF, he even has special clothes with lots of little metal wires to shield him from the rays. Yeah. We had no idea when we asked, but yes, he's wearing the fabric right now. Is that a shirt?
It's a T-shirt, yeah. Oh. And it has little metal fibers in it, and it helps to shield your
Makes
torso.
Them bounce off or not come through?
Yeah.
But before you make the mistake of writing off Paul as a nutty professor, you should know he's considered one of the world's preeminent scientists on electromagnetic fields. And his concerns are backed up by dozens of peer-reviewed scientific studies. You got your BA at Johns Hopkins University, very prestigious institution. You got your PhD at the California Institute of Technology. So you're someone who comes to this issue with a great set of credentials and experience.
Yes, and my bachelor's degree is in physics, and my PhD is in biochemistry and genetics. So I've got both the life sciences and the physics. It's the way in which these two interact, which is crucial for understanding how EMFs impact the cells of our bodies.
We'll get to that in a moment. But first, what is 5G? And for that matter, what are the previous Gs, which stands for generation, of the world's mobile networks? The rollout of this new technology is happening as we speak.
And we're going to have 5G. We're going to have the best 5G in the world, just like we have everything else.
But the same magic that makes 5G bigger, better, and faster poses serious health risks to people, says Paul.
We know that the EMFs impact the cells of our bodies, all the cells of our bodies, by activating some channels. And when they do that, they produce all kinds of effects. And those include neurological, neuropsychiatric effects. They include reproductive effects. They include oxidative stress, which is involved in essentially all chronic diseases. So I'm deeply concerned about this situation.
Is it your feeling that mobile phone use and 5G in the future have been and are causes of chronic disease epidemics in this country?
I believe that the exposures we already have are producing major effects already on our health, and that 5G will be vastly worse than anything that we are already exposed to.
At least 3 expert medical groups have linked certain kinds of electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, to cancer, particularly childhood leukemia. The U.S. National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, a working group under the World Health Organization, and a European scientific committee, which studied cell phones in particular. Paul says there's more to worry about.
What's been shown is you get depression, I can't sleep, I'm tired all the time, I'm depressed, I've got headaches, I can't concentrate, I'm anxious. All the things that everybody complains about now, we know are caused by EMF exposures. And not just one type, but multiple types of EMF exposures.
Stop 5G! We want safe technology! The concerns are shared by citizens and scientists around the world who are campaigning against 5G. We want fiber, not 5G. A small sidewalk rally last May in Bethesda, Maryland.
Hello, Council.
And in Sacramento, California last June.
These antennas are being installed without our permission, without any warning at all. Many of us do not want to be guinea pigs in this experiment, but we apparently have no say in the matter.
Still, U.S. regulators insist there's nothing to fear. After reviewing hundreds of studies, the Food and Drug Administration recently told Congress the current safety limits for cell phone radiation remain acceptable for protecting the public health. At the same time, the FDA did urge the cell phone industry to support new research on cell phone safety.
We've heard from a lot of witnesses about the very important potential of 5G.
At a hearing in February, Senator Richard Blumenthal asked wireless representatives if they had funded new safety studies as the FDA asked. They said,
"No, I'm not aware of any."
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of flying blind here, so far as health and safety is concerned.
How do you explain them saying the science doesn't exist, that there's nothing that gives us cause for concern?
It's all corruption. There's no other explanation. I think there are at least 25 different reviews that have been published on this over the years.
You're implying that the industry, the telecommunications industry, is so powerful here in this country. Is that a reason you think why our government hasn't commissioned these studies and isn't talking about it?
I can't figure out any other reason.
Whatever the case, 5G deployment in the U.S. is moving full steam ahead. 5G for mobile phones is already being deployed, with broader expansion coming in 2020, especially in big cities. Supporters say there's no reason to think it's dangerous. Critics say there's no evidence it's safe. It strikes me that there's probably zero chance we're going back from the technology that creates this kind of exposure.
We need to dramatically decrease exposures. We are taking risks of the sort that no rational society can possibly take. And we're doing this blindly and in my judgment, with absolute stupidity.
The FCC has been criticized for not updating cell phone safety standards since 1996. But FCC officials insist there's nothing special about 5G and that the higher frequency signals used to deliver it pose no health risk.
So that was Cheryl Atkinson. Good to know that we're flying blind, eh? Unbelievable. No studies have been done. So what happens is the FCC will go to the telecom companies and say, hey, you need to do new studies. And they'll say, sure, but they won't do them. The FCC come a year later and say, hey, you need to do some new studies. They don't do them. The FCC are seen to be doing their job, asking for studies, but they never enforce it. And the telecoms company never do it. And things are just in a crazy, crazy situation. But as you saw from Dr. Martin Paul, goodness, that man thinks we're doomed. And he is the worldwide expert on all this stuff. Now, what are the 5G characteristics? Well, it's incredibly fast and concentrated. It needs a station basically every 500 feet. They want to get everything in the world connected to this, and it's totally inescapable. That's the characteristics. What does it make possible? Well, technology, if you're paying any attention at all to AI and stuff, it is going at a speed that is unbelievable. They can now microchip your vaccine information into your body, like put a little chip into you. There's companies in America already have their staff chipped, so that when their staff come to work in the morning, they just put their hand up to a scanner. It knows who it is, lets them in. There's a little chip in the back of their hand, and people don't object to this. Blows my mind. Digital currency to control your buying. If everything goes digital and there's no cash anymore, then the government can decide you're not allowed to buy guns in a particular state, or you're not allowed to buy marijuana, or you're not allowed to buy vitamin C. They can control whatever you buy through all this 5G internet infrastructure. They can stop you traveling if they want to do that. You were a bad person 2 months ago, you're not allowed to travel. Every part of your life can be recorded. And they even have crowd control now with 5G millimeter wave technology. It's active denial systems, they call these. And what they do is they shoot a beam of 5G at a person in crowd control situation, and it makes your body feel like it's on fire. It actually goes into your body like a millimeter, 2 millimeters, this heat, and makes you feel like you're on fire. So craziness with what they can do with 5G right now. What else is it making possible? Well, I'm going to show you a video which I think will pretty much blow your mind. It's only about 4 minutes long. But this is what's happening in China right now with 5G, what the Chinese government are using it for, and what's achievable with it. Be prepared to be blown away. 4 minutes, 18 seconds long. It's split into two, this video, and I made it very clear in the middle where I made the split, just so you understand. So 2 videos in one, 4 minutes long. Let me run this for you now.
So, picture your life in a place where everything you do, what you buy, how you behave, is tracked. The government gives you a score, and the score is a measure of how trustworthy you are as a citizen and determines what you're allowed to do, like ever. Boarding a train, getting a mortgage, all goes back to this score. It's called social credit. It sounds like that show Black Mirror, but it's actually happening in China. So how does that change you? Does it change you? What does your life look like when your every move is watched? The system's eyes are in big data, artificial intelligence, and roughly 200 million surveillance cameras. And that's totally fine with Ouyang Haoyu. She's 21, graduated from a good school with solid grades. She's diligent. She's nice. No surprise, she's a 752. That's her rating with Sesame Credit, a private company working with the government on the algorithms for the social credit system. The scores go from 350 to 950 and are based on habits and behavior. Buy clothes or diapers, it's good. A lot of alcohol, too many video games, not so good. Haoyu's 752 puts her in model citizen range and gets her discounts and privileges, like using a shared bike without a deposit. She likes it. Her friends do too. They all have pretty high scores.
It's a mechanism like pushes you to become a better citizen, to build on the trust, especially on the Chinese market.
Because you're not going to be punished if you haven't done anything wrong.
I think that's the point. I think the system is working as a warning or an alert to like to push people to do it, to be a good person.
And it's mandatory. When it goes national, social credit scores will be assigned to every one of China's citizens for life. And what's weird is that so many people seem okay with it. It's complicated, but China went from extreme poverty to economic giant pretty quickly. A credit history system didn't grow at the same pace, so people would default on loans and get away with it. Add in scandals around fake food, tainted baby milk, counterfeit goods, and what you've got is a big problem with trust. So, in 2014, the Communist Party called for a system to allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step.
Teachers at this primary school in China know exactly when someone isn't paying attention. These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents. China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence. It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens. Meanwhile, some schools offer glimpses of what the future of high-tech education in the country might look like. Good job! Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes. These gadgets have alarmed Chinese netizens.
Isn't that crazy? That's China now. That's where everything is heading. Complete control over everything. Now, if you don't think there's extensive censorship in this country, then you need to have a look around you, folks, because YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, they are all censoring alternative viewpoints, and genuine alternative viewpoints are being censored heavily. I worked with a gentleman called Andrew Saul. I mentioned him at the start. He was kicked off Facebook for saying that vitamin C could help you with COVID. That's literally what he said. Vitamin C, high doses, can help you fight COVID. They banned him. They closed his account. And here's a few things you need to be aware of as far as censorship and how they're hiding reality with the whole EMF thing. Amazon have vans now that take 16 pictures as they deliver your parcels, and they're beamed back to a central location. 16 videos on one van, beaming this all back to a central location. Censorship. YouTube took down over 300,000 videos during COVID, almost 500,000 videos, because the video didn't follow the narrative that it's now clear the government and the tech companies had agreed between them. Amazon, if you've got an Amazon Echo in your home, this will be of interest to you for sure. These devices that you can talk to, I'm sure you've seen how adverts can mysteriously appear on your phone after you mention something to a friend in a conversation. But there's a thing called Amazon Sidewalk. And if you have an Amazon device, you're automatically signed up to Amazon Sidewalk. And what it means is that your neighbors, if their Wi-Fi goes down, your neighbors automatically can use your Wi-Fi. You are signed up through your agreement with Amazon Echo to Amazon Sidewalk. CNN actually recommended people opt out of Amazon Sidewalk because they saw the dangers that were coming with it. Now, during the whole COVID thing, cell towers started appearing in schools. No planning permission in a lot of these things. In Denver, this one was. They just appeared in schools because with the school closed, this was an easy way to bypass regulations. Governor Newsom did the same thing in California, all over the place. Right now in Georgia, AT&T are trialing something called Project ErGig. And what this is a way to turn every single electrical pylon into a 5G station. They have submitted over 500 patents and applications related to the ErGig technology, AT&T have. And what did the Atlanta City Attorney say about this? Well, we haven't looked at the health effects of smart cities. It's not my job to do so. That's what she said. And finally, OTARD. What on earth is OTARD? Well, OTARD is something else brought out by the FCC, and this gives anyone the right to have a 5G station on their private land without telling neighbors. So if you want to make $600, as we see in the red box there, you just go to the telecom companies and you say, hey, you can put a thing on my land. They pay you $600. No one needs to know it's there. How crazy is that? You could have a person each side of you with a 5G transmitting station on their property, and because of OTARD, you have no right to know. It's literally the wildest Wild West out there. Now, what about science? Now, we've heard this, follow the science. We've heard this for years, and we know how laughable it is in certain instances. But what about scientists and EMFs? Well, as we said earlier, there are some who are bought off who say there's no issues. But if you go to emfscientist.org, emfscientist.org, there are a group of over 250 EMF world-recognized, best-informed people on the planet, the people who really understand this stuff. And they are calling on the United Nations and the World Health Organization to do more testing and to stop the automatic rollouts of 5G, because they say there's major, major problems coming. emfscientist.org. They are actually saying this. And if they, the people who understand, are saying this, we should be 10 times more worried. Now, this poor girl, her name is Jenny Fry. And in some ways, Jenny is a sad outworking of the reality of the dangers we've been talking about. Her life was decimated because she was so sensitive to EMFs. She couldn't go to school. It killed her. The pain, the anxiety, and the school refused to do anything about it. They wouldn't take Wi-Fi out. They wouldn't give her classes in a non-Wi-Fi part of the school. And they found Jenny hanging in the woods near her home. And her mom has become a figurehead for fighting against EMF issues and fighting against EMF pollution. If you look up Jenny Fry and her mother, you'll find she speaks all over the place. She is a real committed activist. But Jenny, bless her heart, is an outworking of our inability to actually try to tackle this situation. Now, I have to cover this because everyone asks us about it. I'll cover it in 2 minutes. People say, hey, is COVID related to 5G? Was COVID related to 5G? Well, here's how people said it was. And let me just explain this. Because you saw this all over YouTube. There were hundreds of videos, and I say hundreds of thousands of them were taken down. And in the UK, they even burned down. People were going out and burning down 5G towers because they said they were causing COVID. All these videos used to be on YouTube. They're not anymore. They've all been taken down. What we do know is that your immune system can be compromised by EMF exposure. There's a lot of studies that show that. That's a fact. Your immune system can be compromised by exposure to EMFs. We also know that Wuhan, the famous Wuhan, and to talk about the bats and all that stuff, Wuhan was the Chinese pilot city for 5G. And it was in the month of, as you can see on your screen there, October 2019. That's when all these 10,000 5G base stations were being turned on in Wuhan. So people put two and two together. 5G wrecks your immune system. Wuhan was the pilot city for 5G. Therefore, that's why the virus came out of Wuhan. I'm just telling you what people said. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's why people made those links, just to clarify that one. Now, once we've totally screwed up the Earth, what can we do then? We go to space. And SpaceX are doing exactly that. They are putting 42,000 5G satellites up there to beam 5G down on us. As if we don't have enough problem with the base stations here. It's going to be beamed down on us. Full space deployment of 5G. Madness. If you go to YouTube, put in 42,000 satellites, you will find hundreds of videos about this. Astronomers are saying they can't even see the stars anymore. There are so many satellites up there. And I love this way this newspaper phrased it. They said thousands of new satellites are going to carpet bomb the planet with 5G radiation, and there's nowhere to hide. Full space deployment. That's what it's going to look like. Satellites everywhere beaming this stuff down on us. Now, what on earth can we do about all this? What can we actually do about everything that's going on? Well, here's a couple of useful resources for you for starters. If you want to find out about antennas near you, 5G antennas, even 4G antennas, go to antennasearch.com if you're in the US, put in your zip code, you'll be blown away by what you find. Antennasearch.com, really good resource. The same resource for the UK is cellmapper.net. That may actually work worldwide. I'm not sure. I haven't had time to test it today. But cellmapper.net may work worldwide. But those are a couple of good resources for you. Also a good resource for you, and we're going to email this to you, is our own guide, 25 Steps to Reduce Exposure, the 5G and EMF Essential Guide. We're going to send that out to you. There's 25 steps in there. Now, credit to, again, Dr. Mercola for his wonderful book, EMF, and Daniel and Ryan DeBond for their book, Radiation Nation. We've drawn some of the 25 recommendations from those books. So let me run through them. I'm not going to run through all 25 because it would be a huge resource of time. We will send you the book with all 25 in it, but let me run through some of the key ones for you. Let's start with distance and time. They are your two best friends when it comes to EMF. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. In some ways, it makes complete sense. Time. Well, the less time you spend with your phone at your ear, the less time you spend with your phone beside your bed. In that sense, time is obvious. Distance is a little more complicated, but not too bad. The more distance you have. Now, it's not as simple as if you're 2 feet away, you get twice the exposure if you're 4 feet away. It actually goes down exponentially, which is a good thing. That means that the intensity is actually directly proportional to 1 over the distance squared. Let me make that simple. If you're a foot away and you're getting 100% of the EMFs, if you move to 4 foot away, you're only getting 6% of that EMF. So it drops rapidly. And all that means is keep some distance, get some distance, and spend less time. Those are your best friends as far as EMFs are concerned. Now, let's start with the bedroom, okay? The bedroom's a good place to start with EMFs. Hopefully your bedroom doesn't look like that, but there are things in your bedroom you need to deal with. Electric blankets. All sorts of electric blankets, water beds, heating pads, they all conduct electric. You don't want to be sleeping with your electric blanket on. If you want to heat your bed, do that before you get into it. Turn the electric blanket off and then get into the bed. But don't have it on when you're in there. It's a real strong source of EMFs. The position of your bed might sound strange, but some people have a utility pole right outside their bedroom. You want to put the bed at the far side of the room. It's pretty much that simple. Don't do what that guy did and try to knock it down. Move your bed to the other side of the room. Same thing with major appliances. The refrigerator and the home entertainment center are often the biggest producers of magnetic fields in your home. If you can move your bed away from them, do so. And I know they're probably not in the same room, but remember, Wi-Fi goes through a wall as if it's not there. So keep your bed away from the major emitters of EMFs. If you've got a deck phone in your house, a deck phone is one of those phones that sits on a little base station. You need to get it out of your house. They are a drastic producer of EMFs. Really, really strong producer. Some of the little base stations are producing signals that are as strong as a small 4G transmitter because they're trying to send the signal like, 150 feet to wherever you have this phone. Get the deck phone out of your house. Use a normal wired phone. Curly whirly bulbs. Lovely name. That's a curly whirly bulb. Replace all compact fluorescent light bulbs that are in your home with normal incandescent lights. They are the healthiest light bulbs to have. Again, it's a biggie, okay? Get those bulbs out of your home. Now, this one, again, irks me a little. Baby monitors. My little grandkids, I said to my daughter, please don't put a baby monitor. She put a baby monitor in the bedroom. So I begged her, at least move it as far away in that room as you can. Because those little skulls have no protection from this stuff. So you need to move the baby monitor as far away as you can if you have one at all, and you're much better not having one. All right? Microwaves. Ditch your microwave. Do you know what I found this week? Microwaves were originally called radar ranges. Would you like a radar range? And they called that because microwaves actually were discovered by sailors who were using radar. They used to gather on ships beside the radar equipment because they found it was warm. And they also found that chocolate that was in their pockets used to melt, and they couldn't understand why. Well, someone figured out because of the radar, and someone figured they could put that radar into a little range to heat your food. Well, they figured women wouldn't want radar in their kitchen, so let's call it a microwave. Get the microwave out of your house, folks. And at very, very least, when you're cooking food, don't stand peering in the glass. Put the food in, press a button, and get the heck out of there. Your microwave food will still be like blitzed, but at least you won't. So get rid of your microwave if you can. Smart TVs, etc. Be aware that your Apple TV, your smart TV, your Roku, all can be emitting Wi-Fi signals. Turn them off. Hardwire your internet where possible. If you are using Wi-Fi, if hardwiring it is an option, do that and get rid of the Wi-Fi. That is a big, big plus for a house. Wireless chargers. Don't charge your phone beside your bed, and don't use wireless chargers. Very simple. Signal strength. Try to use your phone when it has a good signal strength. This is one it was counterintuitive, but I've heard it from a lot of people. When you are using your phone and the signal is bad, your phone is working so much harder to connect to anywhere it can. It's pinging everywhere. If your phone's on full signal, it's not pinging as much because it's happy. So try to make phone calls when you've got good signal strength, not bad signal strength. There's much less power being emitted at that point. And finally, number 25, avoid Bluetooth where possible. Bluetooth is simply a watered down Wi-Fi signal, very weak signal, but that's what it is. It's a Wi-Fi signal. Use simple earphones or speaker mode, and they will help. Now, a lot of people ask us about AirPods. Well, Yahoo Finance carried this. Wireless headphones like Apple AirPods could pose cancer risk, scientists say. A group of 250 experts signed this United Nations declaration, and AirPods were mentioned in there. So just, you're going to ask, so there you go. To stay up to date with this stuff, 2 wonderful websites, childrenshealthdefense.org, that is Robert Kennedy's site that I told you about earlier, and momsacrossamerica.com. Both great websites, great resources, and they stay up to date with all this stuff. So make a note of those. We will email them to you, and they'll be hugely helpful for you. But listen, don't miss this, folks, because this is the most important thing. There's no getting away from it. You need to take measures to protect yourself. No one's going to do it for you. You have to take this seriously. Most people don't even know it exists, and it's a huge problem. It's only getting worse. It's a problem that's here now. It's not coming. It's here now, and it's only getting worse. Remember, it's invisible, it's odorless, and it's silent. And it's cumulatively harmful at cellular level. What does that mean? It means it's like the sun. If you get a little bit of the sun, you get a bit more sun, the sunburn's going to build up. RF's the same. EMF's the same. You don't want to get a lot of this stuff because it's bad for you. It's really, really bad for you. Now, I've talked about the available networks and everything you see, and we've talked about everything you don't see. That's what you've got to try and shield yourself from. There's so much out there that we don't know exists. We've got to think about it, and we've got to deal with it. I really hope the past hour or so has been useful. I hope you've learned a lot. Most people do learn a lot on this webinar. I'm very fortunate to do it, as I've said earlier, and I appreciate it. And hopefully you'll agree it's been time well spent. We can't cram everything in. The pregnancy thing, for example, I could talk for half an hour on that. It's fascinating and it's scary, but we don't have time to cover it all. And I honestly wanted to give you some advice of things you can do, and also a no-risk way to try something for yourself in your own home, something that I found hugely, hugely beneficial. I want to tell you about this technology. It's giving a lot of families hope, and a lot of families have taken advantage of it, I can tell you. Here's how I came across it, and here's how I found out about the solution. When I was making the series Live Long, Feel Better, we were interviewing for an episode on toxins. And we interviewed like dozens of people for the 67 people actually for this series we interviewed. And we've interviewed hundreds across the globe for all the different films we made. But there's one guy we were interviewing for this particular episode, Robert Scott Bell. And he said, listen, talking about toxins, talking about EMF, can I bring actually the device with me and explain to you how much this has changed my life? And well, of course, we wanted to hear about it. So I'm going to run this for you. It's only like 3 minutes long, but this is Robert Scott Bell in Live Longer, Feel Better, telling us about the key home device for the first time we ever heard about it. Let me run this for you.
Some people are convinced this new device is one of the answers to EMF pollution.
When we look at technologies, the key QI technology out of Germany was fascinating to me because it's a water-based technology setting up a field of electrons that would flood your environment. And in this case, we have this beautiful little key home technology right here. And in it, it creates a kind of a circuitous flow through the water, but it's a passive system. Charged up initially, it doesn't require being plugged in, which is another nice thing, having that. No matter what happens, you have the ability to use it. So when you set it in your home, then what happens is it starts producing an electron field, much like a big donut shape, all the way up, down, and around, and for many feet in every direction. And so the size of this is like a traditional standard home. And when I brought it home, my wife immediately said, there's something feels different. Something feels different. Didn't know what it was, but over the course of the next days to weeks, she was sustaining energy that she hadn't in 6 prior years of dealing with the medical issues she had with the cavitation and the devastation, the pain, everything she suffered from. So she had a very short limit on what she could function in a day, and then she would have to retreat totally. And she was extending that every day to the point where we would be going out, and I'm looking at her, and I can't believe she's still functioning, and she's looking at me. We're out, and I'm okay. And, and the only thing we had changed at that point was having this at home. So protecting yourself in a home setting is significant in that it reduces the burden so that you are more resilient when you go out into the world, because there's no escape totally from it at this point. So
it looks beautiful. What's in there? How does it actually work?
Well, there's technology out of Germany that they did, but I'm most fascinated because they have the specially form of water vials that are all the way surrounding this. And, when it's up on its side, it's inactive. When you set it down, as you see here, it becomes active, and then the field is generated in that regard. And so there's, technology that is likely proprietary, but I've seen what it is, and it's brilliant in its simplicity and the fact that it doesn't require an ongoing source of electricity. So I don't know how to describe it in more depth than that, except that we know what it produces, and that is measurable, these fields of electrons that will then settle on you, your pets, your kids. And so that the EM field disruption, whether it be cell phone, whether it be cell tower, whether it be Wi-Fi, when those signals hit you, they would normally penetrate, and that's where the damage and inflammation and heat might be assessed. Whereas in this case, it would interfere or interact with the electrons that have now settled on you because of the production that happens passively in this key home technology.
So that's a kind of home device. What about bigger spaces or smaller spaces?
Yeah, there's a larger, for some people live, big American homes. Big is not even this, but bigger, And so there's a larger unit that's about 45 pounds that you, again, set somewhere in the center of your house.
So that was the first time that I ever heard of a key device. First time I ever came across it. I didn't even know that devices existed to help you deal with the EMF problems. Now, I have spoken to Robert since that. I did a longer interview with him. It's about 10 minutes long. And I'm going to run that for you at the very, very end tonight, after the Q&A and everything. So only those of you who are really interested can hang about to see that. But it's his detailed account of how this basically changed his wife's life. And I'll run that for you at the very, very end tonight. But these are the devices that he was talking about. And these are the devices I'm going to introduce you to tonight. 3 different devices, all called key devices. But there's the Key Shield, which is a smaller device. Mine's sitting around here. There, it's there. I keep it beside me all the time in my office. The Key Shield, the key home, which is to protect your home, and the key max, which is for big homes. Well, what do these actually do? Well, in the most basic terms, now I'm going to explain more, but in the most basic terms, they allow you to live with EMFs and suffer significantly less harm in doing so. That's in the most basic way I can put it. That's what they do. But how does it actually work? Well, I'm going to show you a video. It's 60 seconds long. This is a video the company produced, but it's to show you what this device actually does when you get it into your home. Let me run this for you.
In today's world, we are constantly surrounded by a cloud of charged radio waves emitted by electronic devices like Wi-Fi, phones and satellites. These charged radio waves have the ability to penetrate our bodies and heat the water in our tissues. Hundreds of scientific studies have revealed that these waves not only heat our cells, similar to a microwave oven, but also cause damage to them. At WaveGuard, our mission is to protect you from the negative effects of these radio waves. That's why we've developed the Key Home and other innovative products. The Key Home and Key Shield are the most studied radiation protection devices worldwide, specially invented to prevent those waves to affect your body and health from these negative effects. There aren't many ways to protect oneself from radiation. It enters our homes uninvited. Two good ways to protect ourselves is through shielding and depolarization. The University of Athens has discovered that radiation can be depolarized by interacting with liquids. As the radio wave passes through the liquid, the wave is being spread out on a wider area. Distributing the exposure from one single spot to a large area seems to be the solution, since this is a more normal way of being exposed to radiation, since we're used to that from the natural electromagnetic fields which already our ancestors were exposed to in this way for thousands of years. Studies show that depolarized radiation is more natural again, and what's left is less harmful for biologic organisms, as studies show. This principle is used by WaveGuard. Artificial radiation is polarized by interacting with our specially developed fluid called Key Liquid. It's becoming more natural. As a result of depolarization, the field strength of the electromagnetic field within the range of our devices decreases. Thus, we create a more natural environment. Also, our device has been shown to reduce field strength in over 10 studies from 3 different institutions due to our depolarization technology. The area of effectiveness has an effective range of 16.4 feet above and below, as well as 24.6 feet around the device. The field created by the Key Home extends beyond its physical boundaries, offering protection even through the walls of your home. This means that not only humans and animals benefit from the protection against harmful radiation, but plants and food as well. Whether it's mobile radio waves or WLAN, any particles that come within the field can no longer pose a threat to you or your family. The key technology from WaveGuard is the most studied and advanced radiation protection technology, studied with over 25 studies with some of the most significant university and research institutions in the world. It's a fast and easy solution for a safer environment to protect you and your family. With the Key Home, you can experience a new level of well-being within your home and enjoy increased vitality, all without any detrimental exposure to radiation.
Interesting video, yes. Now, in that video, they talk about polarization and depolarization. That is what they talk about and what the devices do. Now, polarization, if you think about it, is simply the strength of the beam of light in some ways. And let me explain it this way. If you have a polarized beam, like a laser beam, okay, those are not made in nature. Those are man-made. So man-made equals polarized in many ways. Really, really concentrated beam. That's a polarized beam of light. A depolarized beam of light would be like a rainbow, something out of nature. So natural EMFs are depolarized. Man-made EMFs are polarized. And what the actual, because if you think of a rainbow, think of how widely spread that is. There's no, there's no beam there. There's nothing that's going to harm you. It's very, very widespread, very gentle, like a rainbow is. So what these devices are doing is they're taking man-made polarized beams and they're depolarizing them. They're making them less harmful, less direct, if you like. And this scientific paper online explains it really well. It says, while natural unpolarized EMF at any intensity, so any strength of a rainbow, is not going to make your molecules vibrate, is basically what it's saying. But polarized man-made EMFs, and I'm reading this, will induce a coherent forced oscillation on every charged molecule within biological tissue. Polarized beams are going to affect you negatively. Unpolarized don't affect you basically. So these devices depolarize the radiation. Now, there's an amazing study that was done, and I'm going to show you this video. This is a Professor Darch, you call this gentleman. I love his accent. He sounds a little bit like a Bond villain, and that's not being disrespectful. He speaks more languages than I do, for sure, and is much smarter than I am, for sure. But I love his accent. I think he comes across amazingly. But this is a study he did on the key shield and its healing properties and its properties to deal with EMF. So let me run this for you. 3 or 4 minutes long.
My name is Professor Darch, and I'm a biochemist and physiologist. I'm working for more than 30 years in the field of experimental animal-free cell culture models. I'm the chief of a private scientific company. We conducted a study in which we tried to see if the key shield is able to protect against the radiation of an active mobile phone. We used cultured connective tissue fibroblasts for a simulation of the wound healing process. The cells were exposed to the radiation of an active mobile phone for 2 hours, one assay together with the key shield and the other assay without the key shield. Afterwards, the cells were incubated for another 22 hours in the cell culture incubated, were then fixed, stained, and the space of the remaining wound edge was measured. In addition to the quantification of the results of the fixed cells, we also used the time-lapse video system to demonstrate the dynamic process of wound healing with mobile phone radiation and key shield and without the protection of key shield. The present study has shown that the cell regeneration process is largely delayed by the active mobile phone radiation. To our surprise, when using the key shield to have a protection during this exposure process, we could show that the wound healing process is nearly the same as for an unexposed control. For us, this means that the key shield is able to protect against the mobile phone radiation, and from this point of view, we can highly recommend this system.
So that's the wonderful Professor Darch. I think it's hilarious at the end where he says, basically, that he's surprised it worked. That's what he's basically saying in his summary, that the key shield, yes, it works, and I'm surprised it does. But it did, and it worked amazingly well in how it negated the effects of the phone, stopping the healing process. These are the 3 devices again: Key Shield, Key Home, Key Max. And their job is to deal with, one more time, the networks you can see and the networks you can't see. That's what the Key Shield technology does. Now, this gentleman, Hagen Thiers, German gentleman, he is the inventor behind these things. He's the guy who came up with the idea. He himself had massive problems with electropollution. So massive, he actually lived in the woods for a while just to get away from it all. But then he figured, I've got to figure this out. I've got to come up with something that can help people like me. And he is the guy who came up with the key devices. So when I found out about this through Live Longer, Feel Better, I wanted to explain it more to people. And I did an interview, and this is an extract of that interview that I'm going to run for you now. About 6 minutes long, Hagen Thiers explaining what the key device actually is and what it actually does. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we're on the webinar, and I'm delighted to be joined by the inventor, the founder, the CEO, Mr. Hagen Thiers. Hagen, lovely to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe you could give us a very brief backstory, Hagen, of how you came to develop this device. I know you had issues yourself with EMFs, yes?
Yes, that's true. Since my childhood, I had issues with EMF, and my father, he was a mechanical engineer and also a naturopath doctor, as you would call it in America. And he found out, okay, that I had this health issues with EMFs, and so he was trying to look into some kind of solutions. And so then we were going on this journey together. You know, I was always kind of his guinea pig in the beginning as a child to find a solution which works. And it was really astonishing at first to understand that you have no possible way of protecting yourself, because you cannot decide if EMFs are coming inside your home or not. And that is normally, it's not the case with any other aspects in our life. We have a good control over our home, but with EMFs it's not. And if you're having health issues, and if you start to notice that, it starts to get very real, that you have no possibilities really of protecting yourself. And this is what got me on this journey. And so I'm already now 17 years pretty much into this industry, and I had my own health problems, lived in the nature there for quite some time. And when I came back and noticed that it just got worse and worse, all the connections and my symptoms, I was really going strongly onto this path to finding a possibility to help myself and others at the same time.
Wow, fantastic. Now, you're going to understand, Hagen, that some people are skeptical about these devices, because this looks like a piece of wood with a piece of metal wrapped around it that sits there. You don't plug it in, and no power source, and they're going to be skeptical about it. Can you explain a little bit about what it's actually doing?
Well, the thing is, you have only a few possible ways to protect yourself from EMF. One is shut everything down, like you also are telling in your webinars, you know, reduce your exposure. It's the first thing. A second one which you have is to shield yourself, but this is, you need an expert for it, and it's quite pricey. And then the third thing, which is the only other way, which is proven from a physics book, from a university point of view, it's called depolarization. And to make it very easy, something where you can see that very nice is also, for instance, in the rainbow. So if you're having natural EMFs, they are always on a whole broad system on your body. So you're having a wide exposure to your body, and not just a punctual one. And this is what polarization means. Everything which is now from a technical aspect in our world, which we created, like Wi-Fi, it's polarized. So it's on a very small area of effect. It's traveling on a small area. And everything where they're in the nature is on a wide area, like our sun exposure is there, and always affecting our whole body. And for instance, if we're seeing that sunlight passes through liquid, we are also seeing the rainbow effect. And something similar was studying the University of Athens in Greece. And they were looking how it is if you're letting a radio wave like a cell phone signal or a Wi-Fi router pass through a liquid and letting it interact with it. And then what you see is the same effect, that something which was before in a small area gets distributed on a larger area. And in this way, you can actually see that the sensor detects a lower field strength. And this is what, by all definitions in all the world and from all the official governments, is called EMF protection. This is really what radiation protection is about, lowering your field strength. But it didn't stop there. The thing is, when you're depolarizing EMFs, you're having not anymore an punctual effect, like when you're using your cell phone. It's not just affecting your brain and your head, but you can actually expose your body with the same amount of energy just on a larger surface. And so they were studying also the effects of, okay, you still have some cell phone signal left, and we have the same thing. We are depolarizing EMFs with waveguard. And if you are having there left the EMF, they studied what is it doing then to your body? Because obviously, you know, we come back to the analogy of the sun. If you're having a very wide exposure, you can protect yourself with sunscreen. If you're burning a small area, you cannot protect yourself. And so they found out in rat studies, mice studies, and other biological organism studies that there is not anymore even those other non-thermal health effects if you're actually starting to renaturalize the EMFs. This is what the university has called it. It's not my words, but it's renaturalizing basically EMFs. And this is done through liquids. And so I have been studying since my youth. We have been visiting universities in Italy especially, and we have been looking how to create a liquid which is then interacting with the EMF fields and therefore is able to depolarize EMFs in the best possible way. And so the measurements which the university found out when they were just using glucose and saltwater solutions were minimal, and we then started to experiment with all kind of liquids, enhancing them and producing a conductive liquid, which we then actually connected to the copper ring of the device to enlarge the surface area. And in this way, we have actually found a possible way to depolarize the EMFs, which come from all sources around your home and from inside of your home, and to depolarize them. And this is what we have measured. We found that we depolarized them. We have testified that with the best technical institutions. And also then we looked at what is the EMF doing to us, which is left, because we wanted to confirm the same results like in the University of Athens, which has studied this principle, that what is left is less harmful too. It's not just about reducing it, but what is left there, because you can never reach 100% reduction. And then we saw, okay, this is also not any more harmful, and it's way, way less harmful. And this is where we are standing right now, that we can say if we reduce it by this physical principle which the university founded, we have tested with the technical institutions around the world, and then we have done 15 biological studies to see if what is left of the EMF inside your home is still the same or if it is less harmful. And there we can say it's less harmful.
Yeah, okay. Now, I know that WaveGuard as a company offer a 30-day trial on these devices. So yes. What would your advice be to someone? How do they measure when they get it? How do they measure at the end of 30 days? Is there some way they can see maximum benefit, if you like, within that 30-day period to convince them this thing is actually benefiting them?
What we have noticed in the customer reviews, what we have noticed when we're speaking with customers is that the most people, they buy our device because of headaches and sleeping disorders. This is some of the major things which, when they are actually treating symptoms, that this is some of the reasons why they come to us. The other reasons is, of course, to do the prevention of protecting yourself from the serious harms and especially also the not known long-term effects. But especially when you're looking, for instance, at your sleep efficiency, I would very much recommend that people use a sleep tracking device of some sort. They can even, if they don't have a device, they can just get it for free while using their phone in a flight mode modus. Then they have an app on their phone which is tracking their sleep efficiency, and they don't have an EMF from their phone at this time. So this is the cheapest way to see, and what I would recommend for people to do. Get the device, and in the time before you get it, look and record how good is your sleep efficiency. What we see is that the average is something around 65% that the sleep efficiency is for people which get our device. Within 30 days, we see, and this is what we have collected over the time, that the sleep efficiency is then going up in the 30 days significantly for around 10 to 15%, depending on which level they were standing at before. The lower the sleep efficiency, the bigger is the result, which we have on an increase for them. And this can be quite significant and can be very easy and cheap to measure. And this is something which I very much recommend. The same would go, for instance, for heart rate variability, where you see very fast some effects on yourself. And this is the two things which I would recommend people to start tracking before they get our device. And there you see also usually very good results.
Interesting, right? These are amazing devices, I have to tell you. Now, I'm going to give you some more information about them and explain them in the best way I possibly can. But let me tell you what some of the people who actually own the key devices are saying about them themselves. First of all, Chris says, thanks for creating such amazing technology. My energy has doubled since I got this a week ago. Genuinely grateful. Elizabeth said, this has provided me with more peace of mind for myself and my animals, and I'm noticing that I'm functioning better on a daily basis. Brad says, I feel less anxiety and headaches only a day after this product arrived. I did bad because there's 5G near to me and a Wi-Fi router in the room where I sleep. Brad, I would get it out of there anyway, personally, but there you go. He said, my sleep cycles are more regular and sound now. Great product. And Jordan said this. Jordan says, my digestion improved within 24 hours of putting the Key Shield by my head while I slept. It helped me to some extent with my brain fog, and it actually gave me the confidence to buy a Key home cell a few months later. Within 24 hours of having that, I felt like I had my brain back. He goes on to say a couple more things there. One of them being that he spent a lot on other harmonizers, like little stickers for your phone and this sort of thing. But this device actually worked, he basically said. And Caitlin said, I spend 12 hours a day in front of my computer, suffered from headaches and fatigue daily. Started using the Key Shield, and all my headaches and fatigue are now gone. So pleased with this. This is Lee Allen Baker. You might know her from Charmed, Will and Grace, Good Luck Charlie, quite a famous actress. She said this about the Key Shield. She said, I started to look for different ways to mitigate EMFs. I'd seen everything from stickers for your phone to the idea of building a house out in the woods. But I tried the beautiful little Key Shield and I set it near my bed. My boys and I crashed, and when I woke up, I said to myself, wow, I haven't slept right in 20 years. I couldn't believe how well that thing improved my sleep. Now, one more for you. This is Eric Zielinski. I was at a conference with Eric about 3 years ago, and he was telling me how his little daughter, in the middle there on her mama's knee, wasn't sleeping through the night. They'd moved into a new home. And I said, you should really try a Key Home. Let me ship one down to you. And this is Eric's testimonial after trying it. He said, our 3-year-old Isabella had trouble sleeping through the night. Went on for weeks, probably because infants are more sensitive to EMFs. But we experienced improvements as soon as the Key device was added to her home. The very first night that the Key device was added, Isabella slept right through. And you know, if you've got a child who's that age, that is a blessing. That is a blessing. But what about studies? Have there been studies done on these things? Because I could tell you all the bunkum in the world, but is it real? Does it work? Is it changing lives? Well, WaveGuard has spent over $1 million since 2020 on studies to prove how well these things work. I've already showed you this one from Dart Scientific, the wound healing study. And basically that showed the difference of how a wound heals if a phone is there stopping the healing and then a Key Shield is put in to stop the effects of the phone stopping the healing, how well it improves it. There was another one done by the Bion Institute in Europe, over 60,000 employees. This is a major European organization. And they used the Friedman test to test things like muscle activity, heart rate, skin conductance. You can see it on your screen, finger temperature, heart rate variability, etc. And what they did was they had a subject sit in a chair with a box behind them and a Key Shield at the side of them. And that person didn't know if it was a real Key Shield or a shell, an empty shell. And they didn't know if the box behind them contained a live Wi-Fi router or a turned off Wi-Fi router. So they had no way of affecting the results of the study. The results of the study were unbelievable. You can see the green there. Green was a problem with the EMF. You can see how much it reduced when the actual Key Shield was brought in. That was the Bion Institute study. Now, we're going to send you links to these studies so you can read away at them to your heart's content. They're not easy to understand. I don't find any medical studies easy to understand, to be honest. But we will send you a link to them. So what are you getting here? It's a key state-of-the-art EMF device, the Shield, the Home, and the Max. Now, these normally start, if you're buying these on the website, the Key Shield starts at $11.95. That's what it costs. Tonight on the webinar, you can pick up a Key Shield from $9.95. All the devices are massively reduced. And when I do a webinar on anything, basically I insist with the company we're working with, you've got to give my people the best possible offer. And I genuinely sometimes have to argue with them to get the pricing we get. But the pricing you're getting on these devices, you're not going to see anywhere else. You really are not going to see it anywhere else. And it's only for 4 days. That's the company insists you can only offer this for 4 days on this webinar. Now, some bonus items about these. Now, the first bonus item is shipping. If you're in the US, they will ship this to you anywhere in the 50 states of the USA completely free of charge. Absolutely zero shipping charge. Goes out with UPS or FedEx, totally free within the USA, all 50 states. If you're elsewhere in the world, they will give you 50% subsidized shipping. So whatever it actually costs them to ship it to you, you'll only be charged 50% of that. And that will come up in your cart when you put the item in there. I would put one note on that. You'll see the Spanish flag there is crossed out. You cannot ship easily to Spain right now. So if you're in Spain and you want to get one of these, you need to contact the company rather than buy it online. You will see you can't actually buy that online. But free shipping, any of the 50 US states. Second great thing about it is you don't need any installation. You take it out of the box, it works. It's that simple. You don't need to plug it in. It's basically made to work when you take it out of the box. So no installation required. If you're outside the USA, a good bonus item for you is that there's no customs charge to pay after tonight. You can pay the customs tonight, and this is delivered to your doorstep. So you don't get a little card through your door saying, hey, you got to come pay $300 and pick this up. It's delivered to your doorstep, okay? This is the Key Shield. This is the portable device. And let me tell you about each of these. This is my Key Shield. I keep this beside me in my office all the time. I have a big key home up in the house, but this stays in my office to protect me. Now, it covers an area, you can see it in the image there, 16 feet wide and basically 16 feet up and down. So it's like a big circle that the Key Shield covers. But realistically, that is made for an office, or it's made for a drinks holder in a car. It's not made to cover a home. You'd have to live in like the tiny one-bedroom flat in the middle of London or somewhere for that to be any good in your home. But that's what the Key Shield is made for. The second device is the Key Home. Now, the Key Home is made for a house that is approximately 2,500 square feet. But it covers an area, you can see it on screen there, 25 feet horizontal and 16 feet above and below. So 50 foot in total across and 32 feet up and down, the Key Home device. So that's a sort of a visual representation of the size that it covers. It's normally $3,995. Tonight it's $3,195. So a big, big saving on the Key Home. And the final one of the family is the Key Max. Now this is made for huge homes. This would actually cover a small block of flats. It covers an area 164 feet radius, so 320 feet in total. That way, that's over 100 yards, and up and down 30 yards. Covers a massive area, the Key Max. Normally $6,495, to you tonight $5,395 if you're interested in that. That is the massive area that the Key Max covers. So those are the three devices, the Key Shield, the Key Home, and the Key Max. Now, there is a payment plan available for them with Klarna. And this is the company that, you know, they provide financing for Amazon. They provide financing for Walmart. They're a huge company. And if you're in the US, you can finance this through Klarna. Just put it in your basket. When you've done that, click that you want Klarna, and you'll get the options for different pricing there. The Key Shield is from $166 a month over 6 months. The Key Home, $147. The Key Max, $219. And Klarna, again, just to emphasize, only available in the US. If you're in Canada, you can use Sezzle. Sezzle's available as well. All these strange names for these financing companies. But I think US and Canada can use Sezzle. But Klarna, definitely US. Sezzle, definitely Canada. I'm afraid the financing does not exist for outside those two main countries at the moment. Okay? That's the two financing options, Sezzle and Klarna. Now, one more really good thing is if you're with us live on the webinar tonight, okay, live on the webinar, the night it's being presented, there's an extra discount just for you. And that's why we encourage you to show up live. This is until midnight Pacific tonight, okay, this extra discount. You get an extra 5% discount. Now, that is considerable because it means your Key Shield is now $945. It means your Key Home is under $3,000. It's down to $2,995, a $1,000 saving. And the Key Max is down to $4,995. That's a $1,500 saving on the Key Max. And remember, this is just the day of the webinar. We actually delete this from the webinar replay so people don't know it was even offered. It's an amazing extra 5% discount, but today only, ending tonight at midnight Pacific, okay? Midnight Pacific tonight. This goes away, and then the offer, the normal webinar offer, is there for everyone else. Now, if you get a Key Shield today, a key device, a key home, a key max, it will improve your sleep. I'm telling you, that was the first thing that I found. It improves your sleep drastically, and you will notice it. That's number one. It will protect all generations from the horrible consequences of EMF exposure. This is going to protect your kids, your grandkids, anyone who's coming into your home. This will protect them. It can also shield your brain from the damaging EMF waves and ultimately help you avoid the diseases like dementia. It can hugely help with depression. I often wonder genuinely if I'd had one of these, would my depression have got as bad as it did. I have worked for the last 25 years sitting in front of a computer. Even when I was touring with the concert tours, sitting in front of a laptop. And I just wonder, I don't know, but I wonder would my depression have ever got as bad as it did? Maybe not. As I've said, when it comes to the most important people in your life, you can protect them all going forward. It's an affordable shield for your family. It is protecting you from the unavoidable devices and from the list of Wi-Fis that are around you. I think you'll agree it's an amazing investment in your family's health and future. Folks, I've done my best to put the very best option in front of you at a price you will probably never see again. That's honestly. And going back to Mercola one last time, as he said in the book, it's imperative that you begin making these choices now, because if you wait for the industry or the government to protect you, it basically ain't going to happen. Over the lifetime of a key device, you can get a serious solution to EMS for less than 50 cents a day. Think about that. Less than 50 cents a day over the 8-year life of this device. It really comes down to your priorities, because a Key Shield, you can look at the Key Shield and you can say, hey, it's got a $9.95 price tag. It's too much for me. You know, yeah, it's a great discount, but folks, it's a genuine scientific solution to your EMF problem. And you can go out and spend twice that amount on a cell phone. That actually makes the problem worse. So it really does come down to priorities. It's a lifetime investment. The thing about getting one of these devices is it literally will protect you every single day. This is not a silly sticker that you put on a phone that doesn't do anything, that promises the world. It's a lifetime investment. Now, you're buying into a lifetime of protection. Imagine being able to trade in your TV or your hi-fi or your fridge in 5 years and saying, hey, I want to get a new one. That's what you can actually do with these devices. There's a thing called the continuous protection policy that Ultralux came up with. Now, what this is, you can trade your device in at any time for 30% off a brand new device. So even if you buy a Key Shield today at $9.95, in 2 years' time, if you decide to get a Key Home, they will take 30% off the then retail price of that Key Home, and it's yours. It's an incredible policy. And it's there so that you can continue to have the protection that these devices give you. There's various terms and conditions. The current device that you want to trade in must be at least 2 years old. But it's a great policy, and it's something you should bear in mind when you're grabbing one of these devices. The Key Shield lasts 5 years. The Key Home and Key Max last 8 years. Now, in some ways, it would be presumptuous of me to just expect you to believe everything I've said these devices can do. So if you're skeptical, and I don't blame you for a second, I'm a skeptical person myself. Maybe you've been burned dozens of times by other, little cheap gimmicky devices. Take one for a test drive, literally. This company will give you one at no risk to yourself. So you can try it for 30 days in your home, try it with your family. Take advantage of it. Use it with your kids and your grandkids for 30 days. And if you can bear to send it back, you can do that. No issue. Just use the original packaging, keep the packaging. Obviously look after the thing. Don't let a cat pee all over it and so on. Return it within the 30 days. They won't question why you're returning it. And best of all you got to do is phone them. Just one phone call returns it. Phone the company, say, hey, can you give me a return number for this? They will actually even arrange the shipping for you at their preferential rates to ship it back to them. And you'll be refunded in full. Try it for yourself. Make a fully informed decision. It's a serious investment for people who take their health seriously. Get it in your home and try it. That's all I would say to you. I'm asking you to step up and try it because you won't regret it. That's what Hannah did. And here's what Hannah said. When I picked up the Key Shield, I immediately could feel the tingling in my hands. I placed it at my coffee table, watched the show. Within 2 hours of having the device, the stress and anxiety I had left my body. Normally, I'm unable to sleep with any of my electrics plugged in, but I left them all plugged in and still got 8 hours sleep. Folks, try it for yourself. Thank you so much. It's been a long webinar. I really genuinely hope this helped you tonight. With 5G here and becoming much more widespread, you're going to hear more and more about the dangers. And with these devices, you can be way ahead of the curve and actually have dealt with some of those devices already. Remember, all these things that we talked about, the immune system, the memory loss, the arthritis, the depression, EMFs can be at the root of any of those. And you're not going to know if EMFs are at the root of them until you negate that effect. Just click the button. You'll get all the information through there. And remember, one phone call returns it if it's not for you. Now, time to go into the Q&A. Before we do, let me ask you this. Please make your questions about the devices specific to the device. In other words, if you want to know how long a device lasts, ask which device, tell us which device you're talking about. Spit my tongue out. Okay, tell us which device you're actually talking about. It's impossible, remember, in the Q&A for us to answer every single question about every EMF device. There's too many out there. And don't ask, is there a replay? Because the answer is yes, there is a replay, and you will be sent a link to it. Now, a couple of comments that have come in through this webinar or a previous webinar. Susan said, I bought a new iPhone. I had to go to the emergency room for a migraine headache that didn't go away for 3 weeks. I have a much harder time concentrating and my depression has resurfaced. Bless you, Susan. That sounds rough. Mike said, I bought a Key Shield a year ago and I love it. I always used to feel like I was going to lose it when Bluetooth was turned on in the car, but not anymore. Kathy said, my name's Kathy and I'm from Detroit. I had a stroke within 5 minutes of 5G being turned on in my city. Dear bless it. That's serious, Kathy. And finally, Norman said, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer last April, had terrible migraines, and the same day I got my shield, I slept all night, and I haven't had a headache since. Norman, amazing. Every blessing to you. Dealing with stage 4 cancer is no fun for anyone. So I really, really hope that that works itself out for you. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened there. But we have a winner tonight to announce, $500 gift card we said we would give away at the start. And the winner is Barbara. Barbara, your second name, I think, is something like SCHIED. You have a Yahoo email address. That's all I can tell you. So, Barbara, congratulations to you. You are our lucky winner tonight. Now, guys, if you want to ask questions directly to Ultralux about the machines, that little green symbol will probably be on your screen when you click through there. And if you click that, you can chat away to the guys at Ultralux, and they will be only too happy to help you and answer your questions. A couple more comments which came in just very, very in the last hour or so, and my folks in the background have been good enough to put them on my screen here. Debbie said, I got breast cancer from carrying my phone in my bra, and my son got testicular cancer in the side where he carried his phone in his pocket. Yeah, it does happen, Debbie, and I'm really sorry about that, but it just goes to show what we're saying is actually true. And Sharon, thank you for this lovely comment. You said, I've been following Trevor for years, and everything I said is true and factual. You ordered the key to protect yourself from radiation, and you no longer keep your phones in your room at night. You've gotten sick, and you removed the Wi-Fi and phones from your space, and within a few hours, you were feeling better. So thank you for that comment, Sharon. Really appreciate it. So our Q&A is with Mr. Jacob Rogers. That is Jacob with his lovely wife, Jessica, and his 3 fantastic kids. Jacob lives in Utah. He is the founder of Ultralux Health, leading health products company in the US, and is the distributor of these key devices. And he also is the guy behind the H2 and the infrared sauna devices that we would talk about sometimes. So I'm hoping that with the click of a button, Jacob can join us live from Utah right now.
Howdy, Trevor.
There he is. How are you, sir?
Good to be with you.
Yeah, good to see you. Just to remind people, just before we go into the questions, these offers end on Sunday night at midnight Pacific. Okay, so just to remind you of that, Sunday night at midnight Pacific. We have a lot of people on, Jacob, so I'm just going to get straight into the questions here. Christopher says, is there any way to determine where 5G phone signals are active?
Well, there are maps and things like that where you can see 5G towers. Most phones are 5G, meaning that if you're in any remotely urban area, you're going to have 5G coverage, 5G towers. You'd have to get into a decently rural area now to go to 4G even, which of course is also an exposure you should be cautious about.
Yeah. Annette, you're saying a family member will not buy any of this unless I can cite studies. Where might I find research that supports this? Annette, first of all, I would say to you, it's very difficult to persuade anyone. That's the first thing I would say. It's hard to change people's minds. But Children's Health Defense is a fantastic website. They have a lot of stuff on there about EMFs and 5G and the damage that it's doing. So I would strongly recommend you go there. And we did show a couple of other websites earlier on as well. So I hope that helps you.
Trevor, could they be asking about waveguard studies as well, or just the?
Possibly, yes, quite possibly. And waveguard, you have waveguard studies at your website, Jacob, right?
We do. And yeah,
ultraluxhealth.com.
And they're easily shared as well. If you're probably already sharing some, Trevor, honestly. So after.
Yeah. And you will get emails, folks, with all these studies and so on after the webinar as well. So don't worry about that. MP says, where can we buy a legit key home? No idea what that question means, MP. All these key homes are legit. The founder was actually listening to the webinar tonight. Hagen sent me a message there just a moment or two ago. So not sure what you mean by legit, but if you want to tell us what you're talking about there, please feel free.
Right here.
Karen is saying, what about EMF meters, Jacob? I'm not sure. It's a very general question, but any recommendations or thoughts on those?
Well, I mean, if Karen, if you're just asking if they're reliable source of information, yeah, you can measure and get a sense of what sort of EMF radiation you have in your home in front of certain objects. I've done that with a meter, held it in front of a laptop, in front of a TV screen, in front of the microwave, even just the walls, lights. Like you'll get a good sense of what you're being exposed to with a meter, and you'll be pretty shocked, honestly.
Yeah. And a good meter in that, if that's what you're asking, is a Cornet ED, E for Eric, D for Delta, ED88T is a good meter. It's about $300 US, £300 UK. Kate, hopefully that answered your question as well. If you're looking something more specific, please by all means come back and ask it. Karen is asking, Jacob, what about a modem in the house? How far should you have that from your body, and should you be turning it off at night?
Yeah, you should definitely try to keep that away from where you sleep, especially. Keep it into an area where you don't spend a lot of time, but you can still have the range, like a faraway closet or whatever like that. I definitely do recommend turning it off at night. There's endless anecdotal and also peer-reviewed studies that reference that there's disturbances during sleep, that people have these experiences. So yeah, no, those are good rules. Keep it away from you, especially during sleep. Turn it off at night, and you'll be glad you did if you have any EMF sensitivity at all.
Okay, Amy is asking this, Jacob. I'll let you have a shot at it. If you have Wi-Fi in your house, it's been explained to her that the EMFs are in the airspace, no matter if you hardwire your computer or use the Wi-Fi. The analogy is that the waves are there in the ocean, you choose to surf the wave or not. What is the difference, asks Amy.
So if she's imagining that the waves are just everywhere, I think some people think of it as like maybe a cloud or something like that. Yeah, like maybe that's mixing our metaphors here. And there are a lot of signals that are going across, but they don't just like float in the atmosphere. Like these signals are direct lines. So if you're holding, I have my phone, but if I'm holding my phone here and it's trying to connect to something on the other side, there's a line going right through my head. And that's how it works. So when you have the opportunity to reduce those influences in the home, that's just a smart thing. But there's lots of different types of frequencies and EMF radiation that you should be concerned about, but you can do a lot to prevent it, like plugging in, like you said, a hardwire cable to get the internet. You'll have a stronger connection even, and you don't have to worry about any wireless transmissions.
Yeah, Amy, I think I get a little different interpretation of your question. I think what you're asking is, what's the point in hard wiring, because the Wi-Fi is going to be there anyway. You have the choice, Amy, with your router if it emits a signal or not. So you can turn your Wi-Fi router off, so there is no Wi-Fi in your home, but still hardwire. So between Jacob's answer and my answer, hopefully that helps you.
You can also just turn it off on the computer as well. If you don't want it off everywhere, but you don't want the signal from your computer, then you plug in hardwire and you'd stay connected. So,
okay. Teresa, this is one you should be able to answer, Jacob. Do infrared saunas carry a lot of EMFs? It's funny how people, and I'm not deriding the question in any way, Teresa, but people do get very hung up on infrared saunas and EMFs.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme, like curiosity almost. I guess it's because you just put yourself in a box and you're getting baked in some way. So you're like, what am I being exposed to? So maybe that's kind of the mindset. Yeah, there's lots of EMFs, especially in cheap infrared saunas. And then you have to be, the higher end ones will start to take some precautions about EMFs, but there's not just EMFs and saunas. You have to be, there's a lot of things to be concerned about, but yeah, it's something to be worried about. You can get saunas with low EMF. We happen to sell one as well. And there's a couple other companies that emphasize low EMF.
Eliza, there's no issue at all sending it to Sweden. They will ship these worldwide. The only place is Spain that I'm aware of that there's a problem. So yeah, Sweden is no issue. Bobby is asking, a key home, Jacob, 2,500 square feet. Is that what you sort of recommend?
Yeah, that's about right. Okay.
And does the shape of the home matter?
It does matter. It matters a great deal, actually. So if the home is a big rectangle, if your floor plan looks like this and you put it in the center, you're going to have the edges that are not being covered. But if you're relatively square, the home will cover that amount of square footage.
Okay, and Doris is asking about the key shield. Does it have to be upright to actually work, or can it be in any sort of orientation?
Yeah, with the key shield, it's actually built to be working no matter the orientation. So they're mobile in mind with those. Put them in a purse, a backpack, whatever, and they'll continue to function. It's the home in the max that you have to have in a static, placed down position.
Karen is asking about using a Faraday bag to put your phone away when you're not using it. Is that useful?
Yeah, I mean, you would completely block the signal. So just as long as you're aware of that, the beauty of our product is that it's not designed to be just an on-off switch. It's just designed to make it much more biologically safe. So you can have your cake and eat it too a bit with this. But a Faraday cage would be effective at just a total shutoff.
Karen, if you're still there, I'd be interested to know why you would use a Faraday bag rather than just turn the phone off. And I'm not being facetious about that, but if it's stopping all signal, maybe you know the answer to that, Jacob.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is just the convenience of taking it in and out without having to turn it on and off.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yep. Joanne says, I'm curious to know, with all this radiation around us, could higher than normal depolarized radiation still be harmful?
Higher than normal depolarized? Oh, no. No, that's when it's depolarized. It by definition, it's biologically safer. And so now there are like different frequencies, and there's a lot of things where now if they're saying polarized, and there's another term which is called ionized. So there's ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, and like mainstream approach is ionizing radiation is like it kills your cells. Like, direct UV rays will kill the cells in your body. And then there's non-ionizing, which regulatory boards will say like, okay, this doesn't immediately kill your cells. But what we are finding with non-ionizing, to the point of, I think your web class here, Trevor, is that those over time can alter your cells. So if you want ionizing, then that's the answer. But As far as depolarizing, no, that's different. But if it's depolarized, it'll be safer.
Okay, excellent. Got a question there. It's just made me go to Amazon and do a search, but I can't find what they're saying. They're saying Dr. McCullough actually has a set of air tubes on Amazon that he's selling. I can't find them, but I'm not saying they're not there. So Lily is asking about those. There's lots of options on Amazon, she said, including Dr. McCullough's. But are air tube headphones good? Yes, they are, Lily. They're sort of the things I was recommending in the webinar itself. Because there's zero EMFs added by those things. So yes, they are a good option. Stella is asking, can you move around your personal device as you move around various locations in your home? Key Shield, I think she's talking about.
Yeah. If you're talking about the Key Shield, then yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's designed for. Yeah, carry it around, keep it by you.
Yeah, exactly. Leanne, yes, available to Australia, no problem. I know the company do ship there a lot. Nancy, you're asking about the dimensions of the Key Shield, 3 inches wide, 7 inches high. Nancy, it's on your screen there. Richard is asking, Jacob, and good question, but how does a unit ensure that all EMFs are being depolarized? Can you possibly know that for sure?
Yeah, it's because of the field. When you have a field that's built, it's like, just imagine like there's a cloud. So if it comes in contact, then it's having that interaction. It's just a scientific interaction that happens. So it's not like it's like a Western and the EMFs are coming and it's shooting at them or something like that. I mean, that'd be kind of cool, but that's just not how it works. You're entering a new field, a new space, and as soon as it enters it, then it has a scientific interaction that reduces the strength and the energy of the EMF signal. There's no way for it not to have that interaction.
And what about pets, Jacob? Safe for pets, these things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Someone called, I love this name, Petey Peters. Petey is asking, what happens once the product reaches the end of its life?
Well, it doesn't explode or anything, Peter. It just, becomes less effective. So the numbers or the dates that Trevor has here on the screen, the 5 years for the Shield, 8 years for the Home and the Max, are the ideal lifespans. We can determine just through some scientific projection that they're going to start, and emphasis on the word start, to decline at those at around that mark, very, very close to those marks. And then they'll continue to be effective for a time after, as well, as they just slowly decline. So you'll actually get a good bit of use after them, even after that. But I would say once you've doubled that lifespan, you probably just have wood and copper that's doing anything there.
And what other options at that stage, Jacob?
Yeah, the thing that we really emphasize, because we just want people to be covered, is this continuous protection policy. So at Ultralux, what you can do is anytime you have a device, you've had it for more than 2 years, you can upgrade that device for any, and it doesn't even matter the same model or whatever. Get a new one, get 30% off. And continually be protected. And it's also really important to know too that we're constantly in a state of trying to improve and perfect these products, so they're getting better all the time. Now, if you get past 2 years and you're like, you guys have something a little bit better, like even if it hasn't totally worn out, you can always upgrade. We don't mind that. You just need to wait at least 2 years. But even if it's 5 or whatever it is, you can use this. And we really are proud of this because we try to focus on the fact that we're trying to just help people. And if you can get 30% off, just imagine if you got a fridge and then after that warranty was over, because you bought a fridge from one company, you can go get 30% off on the next fridge. It's just, usually folks don't do that.
No, absolutely. Just to remind you once again, folks, because a couple of you are asking about the dates. If you get this tonight, the day of the webinar, you get the extra discount that we've told you about. And if you don't manage to get hold of it tonight, you can get the discounts, the webinar discounts, until midnight, Sunday night, Pacific time. And there also is an option, because a couple of you have been asking, the Klarna and Sezzle option is there for payments as well. So those are the different options that are available. Colin says, where is the main area in the home that you'd recommend putting this?
Well, it depends on the device. Generally, I mean, for the Home and the Max, they're stationary. You want them to be centralized as much as possible. For the Shield, you just want to keep it by you. So the Shield's kind of irrelevant, honestly, for in the home, unless you just have like maybe a little studio and you're trying to, you can't afford one that'll cover the whole space or something like that. The Home, recommend center. If you have 2 floors, which is often a question that we get, maybe put it into the top of a closet or the bottom of the floor on the 2nd floor, and it should cover both floors very, very well.
Okay. Heather, I love this question. How much does it actually cost you to produce these products?
Oh, well, Heather, that's a great question. And it's a completely valid one. This is an expensive product. And so the way this sort of thing works is we have a new product. It's cost a lot of money to bring it to market. And there's a first adoption phase with something like this. And the first people, and this is the way it's going to be for a while, is the first people have to help us to recover all the expenses of doing this. It actually costs quite a lot to make them as well. There's a lot of scientific parts and materials in here, and there's no easy way for people to be able to recreate this themselves. And then in addition, it's important to know that all the studies, there's something like 29 studies total now, because there's always new ones on these key devices, and those cost money. Those cost a lot of money. So we have to pay for those, because just like, I mean, we've had a couple people already tonight say, well, what about the studies? And like, and of course they want to know. I would want to know that too. So we have to make sure that not only people can have the validation of the studies, but to know that that the product is doing what we are claiming it does as well. So I hope that helps, Heather. I obviously can't give you the exact numbers on this, but but that's the context.
Yeah, good answer. And I know, Heather, from I was in Utah a couple of months ago, actually doing some research into these things, and I was with one of the scientists. And for you even to go, for these companies to even go and get a study done, you can be looking at $250,000 upfront before they'll even talk to you. So they are expensive products, but they're expensive for a reason, because the studies have gone in there and the work has gone in there. Estrella is asking about a warranty on them, Jacob.
Yeah, you have a 1-year warranty on all of these products, although we expect that you will not have any trouble for much longer.
Okay. Kate says, is there any way to test that these are actually working when you get them in your home?
So we have one mechanism for being able to determine whether it's not working, and that's pretty simple. Is there's glass inside that is designed, that breaks, and if it's not working, you'll be able to hear it move. Otherwise, they've been tested, they've been activated, they're running. There's no convenient way for us to have like a power on symbol on them. But the way that they're charged, they're running. And if the only reason they would stop based off what we've put in there is if something broke. And so if you pick it up and you hear glass jingling very, very clearly, you've got a broken one. Otherwise, it's working and it's doing its job.
And just a question that some people often answer, Jacob, in relation to that. Could these things be sitting in your warehouse for 3 years, like burning up their lifespan before people get them?
And that's a valid question too. No, we have it designed so that they get activated in batches prior to being shipped out. So they're never sitting for very long, as short a time period as we can do.
Okay. Debbie, you're asking about the deadline. It's on your screen there. Midnight Sunday, 5th of November, midnight Pacific time for the webinar. And tonight, if you're on with us live, it is midnight tonight for that extra bit of discount. Julie, the Shield, the portable key Shield, is a 5-year life. That is what's on there. Mike is asking, would a key home be good enough for a townhouse size?
Key home should be just right for a townhouse. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Zindy is asking, she says she has one, and that's why she's asking, should it be used horizontally or vertically? Again, folks, please tell us which device, okay? Because the answer is going to be different. But Jacob.
Yeah, so the Shield is the only one that can be used horizontally or in different, basically just different angles. The Home and the Max are actually designed to shut off if they're not on their feet, if they're up on their side, to preserve life. So you need to have those on their feet to actually be working for the Key Home and the Key Max. The Shield, always working.
Dee Dee, you're saying you have a Key Shield about 2 years. You thought when you bought it, it said it could be recharged. Are you remembering wrongly? I think the previous distributor, Dee Dee, which was Synergy Science, who have now filed for bankruptcy, I do believe that they talked about recharging these. But Jacob, it's not something that's offered right now, correct?
No, it's not. And it's actually not even an ideal situation. It's very expensive to open these up and try to rebuild the parts. It's much better to take advantage of our continuous protection policy, get 30% off on the next one, and then have all the updated components and a brand new system.
Okay, so just to clarify for people, you will honor that even if they bought this through a previous distributor?
Yeah, I will. I will.
Okay, very good. Sue is asking, is there any tax on top of the Key Shield price?
It depends where you live. Go into the checkout, and the answer is no for most of you, but there's a few states that will charge some tax.
Okay, Dane, you're asking what happens after 5 years. I think Jacob sort of explained it starts to degrade after 5 years, but degrades pretty slowly. So, you know, after 7 years, you probably still have a little bit of coverage, but you have peak coverage for those 5 years. PD is asking, we get this question occasionally, does the Key device offer any protection against an EMP pulse bomb?
No, that would not stop an electromagnetic pulse. I mean, we haven't done any studies on it, but just from the depolarization aspect, anything that with that sort of energy level would pretty much push through. That would be my assumption.
Yeah, and how would you do a test on an EMP? I mean,
yeah, I don't know if we'll pick that one up. That'd be a pretty expensive test.
I wouldn't want to be there. I live in Belfast. We've had enough EMPs through the years. Char is asking, why don't the devices last longer?
Oh, wow, Char. I thought it's pretty amazing they last as long as they do. Yeah, so there's a concentrated proprietary solution in there. And it basically acts as, you could compare it to a battery. It sort of has a life, and it just slowly degrades. You know, it's that's just what we've got in there. That's how it works. It's honestly pretty amazing it can last that long. And so, yeah, because it's not an inactive thing that it's doing. It's not like, you know, you can look at it on the screen. There's copper there, right? Copper actually does interrupt signals because it's a metal and it's particularly good at it. The copper will continue to interrupt signals forever, but only like in the place of the copper itself. That lasts for all time. That's a passive interruption. What the shield does, the tech does, is it's an active one. So anyway, it's gonna have a deadline at some point because it requires a power source.
Okay, Kevin has asked the same question a couple of different ways here. He's asking basically if the Key device will interfere badly with your Wi-Fi signal or your Bluetooth signals in the house.
No, that is a really good question, and we have a great answer to that, which is the depolarization is built only to make it more biologically safe. You will still have a signal. You're just reducing the energy and strength of that signal by a large degree, a very large percentage, and so your body's able to absorb it, kind of resist it, make it much less biologically harmful to you, your pets, your plants, everything like that. But the signal will still get through to your phone just fine.
Okay. Janet is asking if you ship to Malaysia. Yeah,
we can do that.
See, I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. Any info about the towers for 5G? I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Cindy, for someone's question to the research about when children are not trusted by your family if you're trying to buy it, Cindy, again, sorry, not really sure what you're getting at there, but we will be sending you the studies, so you can certainly show those to people. Alexandra, is a portable device a Key Shield? Is it easy to damage in the car, or should you just keep it in its box?
You know, it'll only take damage in the sense of like if you're dropping it onto concrete or tile from a couple of feet up, or you know, as far as like throwing it in a bag or something like that, like unless you're using the bag to, you know, hit a mugger or something, you know, you'll be just fine. It's sturdy enough. You don't need to keep it into the actual box. It also has a little silk bag that it comes in, So if you just want to prevent scuffs or things on that, which is totally normal and common, you just leave a little silk bag on it and keep that in your purse or your backpack or whatever.
Krista, the answer to your question about the extra discount is yes, it is available on the finance option. A comment here from Della, which is it just really sums up why we do this and what this is all about. Della, thank you for being so honest about this. You said you just ordered a key device. You had to move to the country because of 5G. You were healthy until it was installed behind your home in a high school. You suffered from Bell's palsy, 2 retina detachments, and seizures. And it took almost 2 years to figure out that EMF were the issue. You say you were very healthy before this happened. And sadly, weeks after your move, your healthy husband found that he had late-stage liver cancer, no history of cancer in his family, and he actually passed away 6 weeks ago. And you believe EMF played a large role in that. Della, I'm so sorry to hear that. But it sort of brings the reality of it, because we're talking about this, you know, in terms of theory and so on. And sadly, you have lived certainly not theory. So sorry about that, Della, but thanks for being so honest. And I hope that sort of wakens people up and makes them realize what is going on. Okay, Lysander, what are the special precautions I can take when I'm outside the house? The only thing I can think of, Lysander, is some sort of shielding device. So a key shield, ideally, is gonna help you with that. The way to the key shield, Rosa, it is £2 basically. And Rose is asking, Jacob, if you can take this through an airport.
Yeah, we've never had anyone have any trouble getting it through security check at an airport. Trevor and I have done it, and it's like personal experience. It's not a problem at all.
No, I've done it many, many times, both domestically and internationally. Judy says, if I take the key shield with me on a bus, does it still work to protect from the onboard EMF's mobile signals and Wi-Fi if the device is bumping along on the bus? Is it still working?
Yeah, absolutely, Judy. And that's really what it's designed for, is that kind of environment so that you can have it with you. So if you're on the bus, you have it in your purse, you will have the protection it provides.
Angie is asking, do you ship to Costa Rica?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kate, what about if you have a 2-level home, do you need one on each level? No, Kate, you don't necessarily. It goes through floors, doors, walls. Very much like your Wi-Fi, it gets everywhere. So if it's within the space that it tells you there it's recommended, you won't have an issue. Judy says, suppose I get a key home, will you see a notable difference in the EMFs measurable by an EMF meter?
Not with a meter, Judy. The way that the reverse polarization works is that it doesn't block it from a meter. It actually can in some instances, but it's difficult to recreate because it depends on some of the environmental factors. But no, the depolarization will still read that there is EMFs in the area. What it can't detect, and this is what requires a lab and other studies, which is why we have so many studies, is the depolarization it can't detect. And that's really what's key to making it biologically safe, is the depolarization. We actually can't. There's no way to completely shield yourself off from EMFs, unless you just literally move to the middle of nowhere and connect with no one ever, because it's just completely surrounding us now. So I wouldn't think about even blocking it as a type of solution. And the meter will indicate those, and you'll be able to see the shields, the home, the max will help, but it's through depolarization, not blocking.
Okay. Rebecca, I'll take a shot at your question. You're saying, is there less EMF exposure between using Wi-Fi on your cell phone versus having Wi-Fi on your phone turned off and 5G from your cell phone provider instead? Both are bad. Is one worse than the other? If you think about it, Rebecca, the 5G signal is there anyway. The 5G signal is there anyway from the cell phone towers. So you might as well use that and turn off the Wi-Fi in your house if that is sort of your question, because you can at least get rid of one of the effects. Because if you use your Wi-Fi, you're still being hit by the 5G. So I hope that helps you. Mike, how many feet vertically does the key shield cover, Jacob?
I think it's just 4 feet vertically, and so which but 4 feet radius. So, I mean, you'll have, it depends on the motion too. So if you're like really jostling it around, it won't be able to build quite as strong a field, but assuming there's some sort of stability, it'll do that. It kind of depends. If it's in your backpack and you're sprinting across the sidewalk or something, it'll probably just barely cover you. So hopefully that answers the question. It just depends on what kind of motion's going on.
Okay, excellent. Amy, why do they decline? Can you explain what it is that expires? Yeah, Jacob explained there's a liquid in there, Amy, that basically slowly disappears, for want of a better way of putting it. Maria, my house is square, but with 34 floors.
Wow. That's a big house.
Maria, I think you've mistyped there. It says
4 floors.
It must be 3 or 4. Maria, if not, you can afford one for each floor anyway. So if you've got a 34 floor house, but sorry, if you're saying 3 or 4 floors, yes, the Keymax would cover that. If that's what you meant there.
That'd be a great solution for that, Maria.
Catherine, I have an infrared biomat. So is that actually transmitting EMFs?
Yeah, it will. I don't know to what degree for that device, but if you're in one of those, you're absolutely getting exposed to EMFs very, very closely as well.
Okay, Zindy says she has a key shield. She's tested its wavelength and also tested a Mac laptop. I tested both together with the key shield, vertically and horizontally. What I found in my testing with my laptop was that for her, it worked best when it was vertical by the laptop's charging and Ethernet port. Thanks for sharing that, Cindy. Amy, is the product the same efficacy anywhere within range, or does it work best the closer to the device you are?
It'll work the same no matter where you're at, unless you're just on the border of the range. Of course, if you step outside the border, or you're like kind of half in, that's when you'd reduce efficacy. But up until that point, you have all the same strength because it's a full field.
Okay, excellent. Gwen, the answer to your question is yes. So about your son's room. So the answer to that is yes. Christopher, if you're in an area with 5G phone coverage but do not use a phone, are you still subject to unsafe amounts of 5G radiation? You are, Christopher. I'm afraid it doesn't matter if you use a phone or not. You'd probably get a little bit less because your phone is not beeping, constantly towards the thing, but you're still in that field. So yes, you're still getting an issue. Eliza's asking, is there a guarantee if something were to happen to this during delivery, Jacob?
Absolutely. You'll be totally covered. No, nothing to worry about. We'll make sure you're taken care of there.
Karen, if you want to reach out to Ultralux through the chat and talk to them about that, please do. I'm sure they'll do what they can to help you. I'm going to try to get through these, Jacob. It's going a long time here. Kate, can the shield or home size be covered, or do they need to stay exposed to the air?
They'll work in the box. They'll work in the box fine if that's the intent of that question. We do recommend not putting anything on it because it could interrupt the field.
Okay. Sheila, as he's explained, there are normal EMF meters not going to see any difference. Sheila, we've explained the wearing out as well. These questions could have been put in before we actually got to it. Sheila, do you have to worry about it freezing at all?
Yeah, you do. The home and Max, usually no one's worried about that because, they're in the home. And so you're usually safe there. For the shield, if it's left in a car or something along those lines, extreme cold can break it, but it has to be extremely, extremely cold. I think it's, you need to be around like 10 or 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you will, you could be in danger of it breaking at that point.
Sheila, no need to shout. You're saying that we said it needed a power source. We didn't say that. So you've misheard something. It definitely does not need a power source. I
know what she's referencing, Trevor. It's when I said the question from the gentleman about, or maybe it was a lady, but about why it doesn't last longer. And so there is an internal power source, to clarify. There's not an external one. You don't need to plug it in.
Okay. And just so Jacob doesn't confuse people, we're not talking about an electric internal power source, because I know some of you, Jacob said it's like a battery, but it's not a battery. So
yeah, that's just a metaphor.
Karen, you're asking, will it break if you drop it? Same as your cell phone, Karen. If you drop it badly, yes, it could break. If you know, it's pure luck. If you drop it, it breaks or it doesn't break. Usually they don't. Morgan says, I have a 500 square foot home in Mexico. Is the key shield enough for me? I turn off the router at night, and it does help with long-term insomnia, but I still waking up 2 or 3 times, even with marijuana tincture. I have a metal plate in my thigh, which I believe attracts the EMFs. But basically, Jacob, is the key shield enough for a 500 square foot home?
You know, technically it won't cover the whole home, but if that's what's in your budget and you kept it by your nightstand while you slept, you would still get some benefit from it. If the key home's an option, that would obviously give you more strength and it would cover a larger area, but the shield would still be very valuable, I think, for you even in that. And you could carry it around as well, you know, if you're working in the kitchen or whatever.
To answer your question, the only issue is if someone steals it. I'm not being facetious, but that would be the only problem there. Sheila is asking, could you briefly explain the difference, Jacob, between EMFs and ELFs?
Well, electromagnetic frequencies are that just includes an extremely large range. The ELFs, I think she's just referencing extremely low frequencies.
Yeah, it is.
And those are really not. I guess it would be considered in the spectrum, but these are not interchangeable terms or anything. If that's kind of what the thought is, they can exist, act independently. They're studied separately from EMFs. These are, they're kind of a completely different animal, honestly.
Okay. Stella, you're asking about the, sorry, there's something weird going on with my computer there, about the name of the EMF tester. It's a Cornet, C-O-R-N-E-T-T, Cornet ED881T. Cornet ED881T. Kathy's asking, do you recycle, or is there any way to recycle the devices at the end of their life, Jacob?
You can send them to us and we can recycle them. That'd be just fine.
Okay. Using key, Mike, no, the signal does not get noticeably weaker at all. It doesn't work in that way by blocking it. Okay, Kathy, we've done that one. Is it harmful at all to use a PEMF device, asks Richard.
No, there's actually really good studies on some benefits from PEMF. That's just pulsed EMF. And again, kind of like I said just a moment ago, folks, that EMF, it covers a very broad spectrum. Some areas are harmful, some are not. And depending on how you're using it and what's going on, there can be some benefits with pulsed EMF in limited ways and in limited applications. So it's, no, don't be scared off just because it says EMF.
Christian, you're asking the difference in the square footage of the Key Home and the Key Max. The Key Home is recommended for 2,500 square foot home. Key Max is absolutely massive. It's absolutely massive. So you could multiply that by 10, I guess, and you'd still be safe. Jacob, someone from the UK is asking, if you were to order tonight, when roughly would they expect to receive their order?
In the UK, if they order tonight, it would get out probably tomorrow. I think UK really safely will say 10 to 14 days. It could be even a little quicker.
Okay. And Joyce, yes, you can place the Key Home underneath the table for sure. No problem. I'm going to call an end to the Q&A at that point. Jacob, it's good to see you.
You too. Great to be with you, everybody, and good questions. So reach out to Ultralux support anytime if we can ever help you. So.
Absolutely. Good to see you, sir.
You too.
So there you go, folks. Just to remind you once again about the dates just before these screens disappear off our screen. The webinar pricing ends on Sunday. This Sunday, November 5th at midnight Pacific time. And if you want to grab the little bit of extra discount, in fact, quite substantial extra discount, if you're on live with us tonight, that ends tonight, November 1 at midnight Pacific. And if you want to go for Klarna or Sezzle, you can do payment plans with them. Just put the device that you're looking in your cart, click the Klarna or Sezzle button, and they will tell you what is available to you. Now, told you at the start about this gentleman, Darren O'Lean. I had the pleasure of interviewing Darren 3 or 4 weeks ago now, partly about his book and partly about EMFs. And I found him to be one of the warmest, most genuine and smartest people that I've ever spoken to, and through all the hundreds of interviews we've done. So I promised I would run this little from Darren. This is EMFs, and about very, very interesting, wonderful guy at presenting. So you're going to enjoy this. I'll put myself off screen.
Life has been evolving for millions of years, and we have been evolving with it. This incredible energy producing sun coming down, interacting with water, has created everything around us, essentially. And that's beneficial. Sun's beneficial to us. We need it. It turns on processes of our circadian rhythms, our pineal glands, our vitamin D. All of this stuff is beneficial. We've also are smart beings. We've created a lot of technologies. I have spent a lot of time digging into chemicals and electromagnetic fields. Come to find out, artificial electromagnetic fields have some side effects. Our cell phones, our Wi-Fi routers, our computers, our gaming consoles, and even our lines coming into our house emit frequencies and electromagnetic radiation. And with that, there's two classifications. From nature, it's non-polarizing, so it's dispersed. Polarizing radiation is what we created. We created these things with our devices, and it shows on a cellular level, it's having some negative effects on cellular regeneration, on detoxification of cells. Cell senescence is being thwarted. And even in 2017, a court ruled in Italy, high frequency, continuous radiation from devices are causing cancer, largely glioma. But also, other studies show that the blood-brain barrier gets opened up. Proteins that aren't supposed to be in the brain end up passing through. Studies also show that free radical damage goes up. And also, the proximity exposure of cell phone radiation and laptops are showing the plummeting of testosterone and also endocrine disrupting mechanisms in the body. This is strange and needs more study, without a doubt. So in the process of 2.5 years of writing my book, Fatal Conveniences, I was desperately looking for solutions so that we can stay connected to this amazing world we've now, created ourselves to be in. And we need protection. So we need very clear protection from some of this stuff. And one amazing company that I found was called WaveGuard. And this company has well over 25 studies that they have done showing protection from their device. As you can see, these are the devices. They're not even plugged in. What that is there's a liquid called a key liquid, QI, with proprietary arrangement of that liquid with copper wrapped around it, creating an amplification of a natural field, a toroidal field that has an expansion from these devices. And what that does when it comes up against polarized radiation of your cell phones and 5G and Wi-Fi routers is it depolarizes some of that radiation so it doesn't have the same effect on your body. I definitely needed to continue to learn more about what these guys are doing. As I was digging into more and more of this stuff, very critically I was looking at the FCC. And they are supposed to have the regulatory guidelines of what's safe for our polarized electromagnetic radiation devices. Well, it's 20 years old, their safety data. And it's largely on thermal proximity. And it's using thermal sensitivity, or it's using SAR, specific absorption rate data. We come to realize is in the real world, we are exponentially getting more and more exposure than what the data and what their guidelines are showing. That's where the real problem is. We need to create this different field and take different measures. Now, these are great devices, and I strongly encourage you to get them. But that doesn't mean still being irresponsible with your devices. Don't put your cell phone up to your head anymore. The data is clear that this is causing disturbances of cellular regeneration and cellular senescence. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Also, get laptops off your lap. Turn off Wi-Fi routers at night. Plug back in using headphones, not Bluetooth. These are all ways to lower the stress from this polarized radiation getting to you. With all of that stuff, plus these devices helping your entire environment, you can take this little one with you. It's always in my car. It's always in my backpack. This big one is always in my home. Further studies show with these devices that with that natural field that's being created, it's having favorable benefit on cellular regeneration. It's showing that if you were not exposed at all to EMFs, your cells would heal naturally. That's the control. When you're exposed to EMF like 5G, it affects your body's ability to regenerate cells. And this was a great study that WaveGuard funded to see what the cellular regeneration looked like. When they had exposure to 5G EMFs and the WaveGuard, it improved the healing effect by 75%. That's huge. These are the kinds of things that when you follow nature, nature gives you a bunch of benefit. The further studies also showing that it's having beneficial effect on structuring water, harmonizing water. And since we're mostly water and we're being affected by other man-made radiation, this is a really good thing for us to continue to learn about how all of the benefits add up to our favor, as opposed to when we divorce nature and we make medicines that are pharmaceutical based, they have side effects always. So we need to minimize our exposure. I strongly encourage you to consider getting a WaveGuard device to support you, your family, and your pets in your home and as you travel. Planes, trains, and automobiles now all have Wi-Fi, and we can barely escape it, even out here.
Genuinely loved interviewing that guy. He's so genuine and just a really good guy. If you're lucky enough to have Netflix, the series is called Down to Earth, and I think there's 2 series. Really worth a watch. Really, really good television. Really, really interesting and enjoyable, and highly recommended. Now, again, promised you earlier that I would run this interview. Robert Scott Bell talking about his wife and how much the key device going into his home changed his wife's life. Good guy, Robert, and really, really interesting story. I would say, again, just for legal reasons, I always say this, and I'm going to show you another little video along with Robert Scott Bell of Jason Thibault. Both of these videos used under fair use policy, no direct endorsement implied of the key devices, but just this is them telling you what these devices actually did for them. So again, I'll get myself off screen and I will play this for you. All right, folks. So like I said to you, and you've just saw that interview with Robert. That was, I think, probably shot about 2.5 years ago, something like that. And Robert, that story was quite fascinating to me because, I mean, literally, I saw in your email that you put out to a lot of your followers this week that literally changed your wife's life. So can I just ask you to relate that story to us, exactly what happened?
Yeah, a little more in depth. I'm glad we did that 2.5 years ago because it's almost so surreal that significant event happened in that 24-hour period, and then it, ever since then, moved forward in that way. Because listen, as a natural medicine kind of guy, homeopath, all of that, I understand that energy can transform us and very rapidly. But still, I wasn't prepared for what happened when we put the key technology into our home. And as I mentioned before, she was retreating into the bedroom, darkening it, and just hiding in pain and exhaustion every day just because of the dental extraction that happened some years earlier that caused her to suffer so greatly. And so when we put this in the center of the house, I understood a little bit about it then, not as much as I do now. But, I got the concept of like, okay, 5G, 4G, all of these things impacting us. So I thought, all right, we'll have a little protective cocoon in our home. But what I wasn't prepared for was that in that just 24 hours later, in the middle of the afternoon, she was already preparing for dinner that evening in the kitchen. She was cleaning the house. She was doing things that I hadn't seen her do in years. If it got to noon, she was gone until she had to come out later. So that was just what just happened here. We didn't do anything different at that point. And I didn't really understand at the moment what was happening. And then within a couple of weeks that we went out, on a date with my best buddy, and we were looking at each other going, I didn't think this was ever going to be possible again. We'd struggled with this. Now, I'm not saying, it's the end of all troubles are gone. And, we all have challenges, but my gosh, the significance of having my wife in abject pain and exhaustion every day from dealing with the pain. And then within 24, I said, there's got to be something more than just protecting us from different levels of disruptive EM fields, for instance. And, I've since talked to the developer. You've talked with him, I'm sure, Hagen Tears, and talked about its benefit to mitochondrial function, energy production. I thought this was the greatest example, unintended, of showing how energy can be restored via the massive amount of electrons, negative ions produced in your atmosphere constantly, and being in that field. And again, that was such a significant event in a day and then in a couple of weeks. And it's like, I don't ever want to be without this technology until one day we get over our obsession with EMFs.
Yeah, totally. But it must have been mind-blowing for you, Robert, because as a naturopath, you've got to have been trying everything for that 3 years. Like,
oh yeah,
and you must have been going, what left? What is there left?
Yeah, and to your point, it's not like we gave up, but at a certain point, we like, I know a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of people who know a lot of stuff, and so many people were willing to help me and my wife, and some things, managed a little bit. We've talked about CBD, and that was helpful, certainly, for the anxiety associated with it, and even more lately, Kratom has helped the pain. But the energy that came back to her ability to function and be able to be, my wife again, and human again, all the things that you're like, you don't understand until you lose the ability to do basic things you take for granted. And as I said, I was the last thing I expected. I did not expect that. And so there may be things when people use this technology that they're going to be surprised, shocked, in fact. I had no idea, right? How much our lives are impacted by these invisible frequencies.
Yeah.
And some know it already because it's very overt for them. Some it's subtle. Some say, I don't feel a thing, right? But you see an event like that and you go, my gosh, there is nothing more tangible that I could have ever even imagined. I didn't even think to pray or hope for something like that to occur. Yeah. So it is a technology that I will not be without. I travel with my Key Shield, for portable reasons, and we have the whole house unit for, to envelope the whole house, and the cats benefit, my kids benefit, I benefit, and I can sleep through the night even if the Wi-Fi is on, no problem.
Fantastic. So this happened, Robert. This is like, because I struggle to get this across to people, and I understand people's skepticism, because this thing comes into your home and you set it there and you don't turn it on. It doesn't run by Wi-Fi. It doesn't run by electricity, and that's how I struggle to get across to people. How can energy coming from an inanimate object almost, how can that affect us and help our life so much?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good perspective. And of course, since that time, there has now been double-blind placebo-controlled tests run and major reputable scientific institutions. Yet, I look at life and I say, all right, even before those tests were conducted, I witnessed something that would be otherwise considered miraculous. Okay. Now, I recognize if you're a materialistic, reductionist atheist, you might not look at energy the way I do. But recognizing that we are so much more than physical beings and that energy does impact matter, all of those things, okay, I didn't have to hurdle over that. But I didn't have any preconceived notion other than the excitement of going, wow, we can protect ourselves from what I see happening out in the world. And I wasn't living in New York City where you got 150 Wi-Fis on your phone just in your vicinity. I was more in a rural area. It was not like we were impacted by 5th generation technology that I was aware of at the time in Florida where we were. It was more rural and hilly. And yet the experience that we had was so visceral, so transformative in that short time period that even I have skeptical thoughts a lot about things. People come to me as a radio host, tell everybody about this great thing. I'm like, you know what? I need to look into that a little more.
Yeah.
But to have that experience, I would urge people, just try it, get an experience. And I'm not saying they're going to be as dramatic as what I had, but I've heard a number of stories over time, including my friend Paul and his wife had those experiences before we even knew that we were going to utilize this. And I just urge you, implore you, in this time of invisible threats to our health that are very, very real and damaging, again, subtle to very overt and everything in between, bring this in and test it. Prove it to yourself, and you will see extraordinary things like I've seen, maybe better, maybe I don't know. But when you have an experience like I've had, and I know many of you have had healing experiences on different levels, that you look back and go, I did not even expect that. I couldn't even thought to hope or pray for it. So I would urge y'all to open your hearts and minds if you're considering this. Take a leap, and you will be, as I am grateful for the opportunity to step up and counteract some of the technologies that have been foisted upon us without consciousness, without spirit, without the love that we need for healing. And there is so much more to this that we're learning about each and every day that I'm just excited to delve deeper into it as we go.
Absolutely. And never was that more needed than right now, for sure. Robert, thanks for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Trevor.
Good to see you again.
So let me give you a little background. Back in May of 2019, my world came crashing down. I felt like I had blood sugar so low that I was going to pass out. So I emergently went and had abdominal and head CTs. I was looking for tumors. I had every blood lab under the sun. We couldn't find anything. 7 practitioners, 7 different specialties, you name it. I saw that doc. We did about $85,000 worth of diagnostics, and everyone was scratching their head. In the meantime, I really felt like I was going to die. Now, I'm not being dramatic. When you can't listen to somebody talk, or you can't even talk yourself because the symptoms go through the roof, you're going to reach at straws to figure out what's wrong. And nobody could. I had over 100 doctors at my fingertips, and I emailed them all, described my symptoms copiously. Nobody could come up with a solution. Oh, maybe you have Lyme's. No, not even close. We already ruled that out. So my wife would take me on these short little trips just to get away from the office because I work 7 days a week. I know some of you right now are going, well, that's the problem. Yeah, maybe. But she took me on these little trips. And I started to feel better almost immediately. I said, sweetheart, I'm feeling really good. This is bizarre. And I even opted out of one of my family members' wedding in Russia because I didn't feel I could travel. Well, little did I know that traveling probably would have helped because I would have gotten away from what was causing the problem. But let's get back to that. So we continued to research. We had a lab come out and measure air quality. Couldn't find anything. Now, one day I came back from a trip and I was feeling pretty good. And I went and sat in a chair that's really close to the television. And my symptoms came back with a vengeance. The worst they've ever been. I felt like I couldn't even get out of the chair. Kind of like Superman when he gets next to kryptonite. And then I looked behind the television and I saw the 5G router that I installed in early May. And I went, oh my gosh, this could be the solution. And I was excited like you couldn't believe. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my life back. I yanked the power cord. We shut down all Wi-Fi in the house. And within hours, it feathered away. Within days, I felt great. And I told a friend about this, and he said, Jason, you need to get an EMF protection device. And I heard of these things, these little pendants that you wear, and I just laughed at those things. I laughed at anybody that ever even had these problems because I figured it's bogus. Well, it wasn't bogus. I was literally dying up here. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do anything. I wasn't motivated. I couldn't drive my company. So I got this key shield, and here's what it looks like. And it's a heavy little guy, a couple pounds at least, 2.5 pounds. And this is creating a field of negative ions, and that field is shaped like a big giant donut. Imagine a big donut, 16 feet in diameter. So if you're within 8 feet of this, you're protected to a degree. So once I brought this into my life, my symptoms pretty much went away. And they come back only when I walk away from the device for periods of time, a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours. And I quickly realized, oh yeah, I don't have my key shield with me. So the product is well researched. For those that are skeptics, I really don't care if you look at the research or not. You can go look at the TUV study. You can look at the cellular biological healing tests that they did. You can look at the double-blind, placebo-controlled. You can read all that. That's great, it's there. What matters to me is it solved my problem. So when someone says, well, what kind of studies do you have? I'm the study. It worked for me. I don't even care about the studies. So I invite you to take a look at these technologies because we know how important it is that you get answers and you get a solution to your problem immediately. Thank you for joining and watching, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.
So that was Robert Scott Bell and Jason Thibault. I found that Jason Thibault testimonial, I guess, on YouTube. I don't know the guy, never met the guy. That's why I say it's just used under fair use policy. I'm not implying that he endorses it. I'm just showing you what he said about it and what he said it did for him. But quite amazing testimonial. Folks, there's still hundreds of you online, which is incredible. And like we're 3 hours and 5 minutes in. It amazes me, and I thank you for being here. But I would say to you, try the thing for yourself. I mean, you literally have nothing to lose if this works for you. If it doesn't work for you, one phone call to the company returns it. You call them up, tell them, they will send a courier to pick it up. You'll pay for the courier, but you'll pay much reduced shipping fees than if you were doing it yourself. And literally, that's all you have to lose. Now, remind you one last time, the offers go away at midnight, Sunday, Pacific time, November 5. If you're on live with us tonight, you get an extra discount before midnight tonight. That's why we always encourage people to come on live. And you also have the options of Klarna and Sezzle if you're looking payments. And the guys from Ultralux, no doubt, and I have no idea because they're in Utah and I'm in Ireland, but they are, I'm sure, still sitting, manning the chat, and feel free to grab them. Because there are still like 400 of you online, I'm going to run the other little part of this interview that I did with Hagen Thiers, the inventor. It's not very long. I think it's probably 7 or 8 minutes, but I'll finish tonight's webinar with this and just run the second part of this interview, which I didn't include at the start because the webinar goes long enough. But the people who are still here are obviously very, very interested, and you should be very interested because this is a fascinating technology. So let me run this for you, get myself off screen, the rest of my interview with Hagen Thiers, the inventor of this device. Excellent. Well, I was going to ask you which test that you've done over the years is the most impressive to you, but I take it the University of Athens, it probably is then from what you're saying, or is there something else that stands out?
Well, the thing is, we have done, it's a concept that you have to follow. You see, first, you have to look if you're actually making a depolarization. This is what we have done with the TUV in Europe and what we have done with the Eurofin and DNB Engineering Institute in America. So they have confirmed that we are reducing the field strength. For instance, in 5G, up to 80% is a field strength reduction. And this is impressive because we're not talking nearly about if our device is having a function or not, or how it is there to function. So, because it's the most sophisticated technical institutions which have basically taken a shielded room, they have a controlled environment, and then they basically used like a tri-field meter. What they are doing is they produce, for instance, the frequency 2.4 gigahertz, which we use usually in our Wi-Fi routers. So we have a shielded room, they have an antenna and a sensor, And they're building up a stable wave and a stable electromagnetic field of a Wi-Fi frequency of 2.4 gigahertz. And then everything is controlled. The line is stable. And then you're bringing a key device to the room. And then they see, wow, the sensor is now only able to detect 80% less electromagnetic fields. And this is what we have done 10 studies on with three different technical institutions. So this is the start. So there's no belief, obviously, in this. There is no placebo effect in this, because the sensor doesn't have a belief if it should actually do something or not. It doesn't even know that the device entered the room. So we're just placing the device inside the room and we see, okay, field strength is dropping. So, and then, since we had this confirmed that this is the depolarizing study, and there we have done on all devices, on the Key Shield, on the Key Home, on the Key Max, we have done the studies, and we have gone from 800 megahertz to looking at a frequency of 1800 and 1900 megahertz, which we use from our cell phone towers in Europe and America. We have done the studies with the 2.4 gigahertz, which is the Wi-Fi frequency, and we have done it with a variety of 5G frequencies. So for instance, the 5500, which we use in the United States mostly, and now our other areas around the world, they're going higher and higher with their frequencies, and we have been testing our devices on up to 40 gigahertz on the effects. And so this is what is the basement of our studies. And then beyond that, we have done a few biological studies and cell studies. And for me, I think the still most impressive one, just from the results, is actually the study on the fibroblast studies of our human body, which we have done. This is really standing out because this was the first 5G study in the world. There is no other study has been done or published before, not on an animal, not on a human, not a long time study, not long time effects. There was literally no studies. When I was in 2019 sitting in London in the 5G conference, and they were showing us what happens to 5G and that it can possibly, cause Alzheimer in 99% ratio, that it does probably most likely cause DNA damages. I was shocked, and to see that there is no studies being done on this effect was surely mind-blowing to me. So I was going on this mission. We have to be doing one. We have to see what's going on. And so this is what we did. We made this study, we paid it ourselves, and we looked at the healing process. And if this is disturbed, if the healing process in our human skin is taking longer when there is a 5G field around our body. And this is what we have done in a cell culture, which again means it's not a placebo effect because the cell doesn't have a mind of its own. And what we saw is that the healing time is extended from 24 hours to 96 hours when there is a 5G frequency field around our body or around our cells. And this is mind-blowing. If we are always having each day thousands of processes in our body where we are healing, we are fighting every day with cancer cells in our body. Every day we have thousands of cells fighting. We are having always our immune system, always having threats. We always have to do repairs. We always have to renew some of our skin cells, right? So there's always this repair processes going on inside of us. And how often we have a headache which has to be repaired. And if we are imagining that all of our healing processes in our body don't take 1 day, for example, but 4 days for the same process, that was mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so we then looked, what is depolarizing EMFs from our device, if we're depolarizing the 5G frequency, is doing it to our body. And then we saw, okay, the healing time is 26 hours. And this is compared to having no EMFs at all inside the room. So we are almost in a state like you are not having any EMFs inside the room when you're having actually 5G, but there is a key shield inside of the room. And this study was really standing out for me. It was the first 5G study in the world. Then we even did it on the body. We were publishing it. We were published on this study. And then we also repeated it 13 times. And the results which we published were the accumulation and the average of the 13 studies which has been done. And now we have been also offered from other universities, like in Dubai. I had gotten now also an offer after I gave my speech here at the World Biohacking Summit. that they also said, okay, we want to help you from the government to actually investigate this 5G studies. Also, Canada reached out to us and Italy to repeat those studies on the 5G and skin cells. So this is actually making some really big waves, this study. And otherwise, of course, we also have a very big double-blind study, which was also very interesting to me to see those results.
Amazing results. One thing you said there, Hagen, which might trigger people and think that this would be a problem, is if you put the key home in your property, in your home, is that going to make it very difficult for your Wi-Fi to pick up and all your devices to work because you're taking down the 80% that you're talking about?
Well, it depends where you're placing the device. The more close the device you're placing near to the Wi-Fi router, the stronger is going to be obviously the effect. And this is also sometimes a way how people see actually the functionality of the device, because they're just placing it near the Wi-Fi router and then they're like, wow, my Wi-Fi drops. And you see it on your phone that it does that. And this is how I found out in the beginning how a lot of people actually notice the effect of the devices. But the thing is, you're having usually a result when you're placing it accordingly to the user manual instructions, which I really encourage people to read, that you're placing it around a meter away from such devices like a Wi-Fi router, then you will have a drop of around 30% usually. And this is nothing which is really bothering your signal, which is still allowing you to use the devices, which is not making it noticeable slower, your whole experience of using your wireless connections, if you're using it according to the user manual instructions. And it is actually fine. But the thing is, it's nice to know that now you have depolarized the radiation, and therefore it's not anymore having this biological effect.
So, Hagen, as with any technology, as with any product, there are people who jump onto this and bring out things purely to make money. And we see all sorts of EMF devices. I mean, from the little things you hang around your neck to the things you stick on your phone. People always ask us about these, so can I ask an expert who has studied stuff to the nth degree, what do you make of all this stuff?
Well, this is what got us into this industry in the first place, that we noticed there isn't really an option which is working. This is what was coming out of this whole problem. We are now having an industry where there's a lot of black sheeps around. And this is what we still notice. And what we're setting us apart from Wavecard is that we are purely going on the basis of studies. We have done studies and we have seen effects from our devices on case studies. We have seen from so many user experience effects from the device on other benefits and on other areas where the devices are helping us. But we are not having those on our website. We are not asking you to promote them or to to help us make there some advertisement about this. We are just trying to be more conservative. We're trying to follow the studies, the research. We're trying to go on this principle. And when you're looking at some stickers, what is there supposed to protect you? Okay, then I had literally met yesterday a person which was selling stickers to 600,000 people in Germany. And I just met him yesterday. And I was asking him, how did you, how do you explain this? Why do you think this works? And he says it's based on a noise canceling technology, similar like that, what you use in the airplanes. And I said, because it's creating this counter frequency, and therefore the effect is going away. And I said, okay, but when you're turning on the noise canceling in your airplane, then the noise is gone from the turbine, right? Which is disturbing, which you're countering, right? Yes, exactly. So the noise is gone, right? Yes. So the same as what you're referring to would be a jammer device doing. You would send a counter frequency, and then you wouldn't have any more Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to use. If this technology is doing what you're telling, then you couldn't use it. I said, yeah, you're right. And so it's very, very easy to counter-proof these effects, and there is unfortunately no possible proof except the placebo effect to the part that how the sticker, pendants, and most harmonizing devices work. And we had one major competitor in the United States which was saying, okay, you put this device in your home and we help you reduce the effects. And I don't know if we can name drop here, but this literally then this is interview which is published from Tech Wellness, and you can read it up. And they were asking the founder, what is this doing, this functioning of this device? And they said, we put in crystals, and then we put in a radioactive material to distribute the healing frequency from the crystals to the room. And this is what's helping to mitigate the EMFs. And I was thinking, this is mind-blowing stuff. How can you use ionizing radiation, a radioactive material, to try to protect yourself from non-ionizing radiation? This is like blowing yourself up with a bomb to protect yourself from a gun bullet. It's like, no, this is wrong. So, and this is what other principles are based on. And this is when it starts to really let me shake my head and think, this is crazy what is out there. And this is sometimes hard for us in Wafer to be there, because we're going very conservative. And this is something what I want our customers to experience, that they see, okay, we are basing our whole website, our products on technology. We're basing it on a university principle. We are following this principle to produce this, the key liquids. We are making the studies we can show. We are doing this. And then we also have results. And we are having the most university studies. We're having the most double-blind studies out there. And it is really important to see at the kind of institutions which we're working with. If you want, I would explain you there what is the difference between some small institutions and big university studies, what is the different levels, how to get into that, because that would actually also give really good information about what is the difference there between us and other competitors out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, I've studied this for years now, and WaveGuard, I think, is the only product out there that actually takes it really seriously as far as doing the studies and doing the tech behind it. So you are to be commended on that for sure. Hagen, thank you for your time. Wonderful to talk to you, and just amazing product that you've brought to the market. And I thank you on behalf of many people for doing that.
Thank you. It was a pleasure of being here.
Yeah, Okay, thought we'd lost the PowerPoint there for a minute. I've just put a jumper on because it's 20 past 11 now here in Ireland. It's getting pretty cold, and still hundreds of people online. So, wow, I just can't get over the interest, and I thank you for it once again. Thank you for being here so much. That is the end of tonight's webinar. Thank you for watching. The offer's one last time available until midnight Sunday, and if you're here with us live until midnight tonight, there's a little bit of extra discount as well. Give it a go. Try it for yourself. See what you think. And whatever you do, whether you take advantage of it or not, be safe. Look after your family. God bless you, each and every one. Thank you for your time tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Hope to see you soon somewhere down the line. Take care. Good night.